Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna continue the story What If Kid Naruto Was Trained by Future Naruto Part 3. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Suna has no right to make such demands. It's only been a week, and they already think we've forgotten about their stupid plan to work with Otto. Hyuga Hiyashi was a proud man who didn't like being ignored. They have nothing to offer in this situation. Utatane Kaharu, who used to work with the current Hokage, said, "We shouldn't let our guards down. This could be a farce. Their demands to get their prized genin back could be a way to make us think those kids are really thinking about becoming Konoha shinobi. I still think they are spies. Konoha will not make the same mistake by letting other foreign shinobi in. That Yakushi Kabuto was Orochimaru's right-hand man. Who knows who these children are? Let alone this Kinuta Dosu, who worked under Orochimaru. They have proven their loyalty, have they not? They fought alongside a Konoha genin, Uzumaki Naruto, and stopped one of the stronger shinobi under Orochimaru. They even made Orochimaru's strongest disciple retreat." Akamichi Shuza, Choji's dad, calmly said. "You think those actions are enough to show your loyalty to Konoha? You may not know as much as I thought," said Shimura Danzo, leader of Anbu root. Around the table where the Konoha council and the clan leaders were sitting, the mean words made the mood dark. It said, "Danzo." The third warned. The old leader spoke up before Shuza could answer. "Now is not the time to fight among ourselves. It is true they have fought for Konoha, and it's true that it might not fully prove anything. But it is also true that they have all undergone several interrogations under both Morino Ibiki and Yamanaka Inoichi." The Sandame nodded to the present Inoichi. "Your thoughts please, Yamanaka-san?" Inoichi replied with a nod, then got up from his seat and stared at everyone there. Shimura Danzo, Utatane Kaharu, Akamichi Shuza, Hyuga Hiyashi, Nara Shikaku, Mitokado Homura, Aburame Shibi, and Inazuka Sume were the people who fought. I've entered all of their minds. They were not prepared at all for the powers of the Yamanaka clan, so I've come across the answers to many questions with ease. They all fought with the same thing in mind. Or rather, the same person. Uzumaki Naruto. The leader of the Yamanaka clan stopped and looked at the third for a short time. One that told them they had to talk alone because he had to tell them something very important that they couldn't hear in this room. They are loyal and loyal alone to Uzumaki Naruto. Not to Konoha, but to him. That much was proven to me. And I know that Uzumaki Naruto is loyal to Konoha. I believe that should answer any questions?" Homura, the other former third teammate, said right away, "Of course it doesn't. Why would they be loyal to Naruto? You've entered their minds, so you know more. A lot more." While Inoichi smiled, he said, "Perhaps I should. But that was enough for me to cut the link. The Yamanaka are mind dwellers, but we will never invade someone else's minds further once we already have the answers we are looking for." He looked back at the Hokage. "They are loyal to Konoha. I think the demands from Suna for their return should not be answered in any way except refusal." Danzo joined the conversation again and said, "Well, that goes without saying. Now, seeing that we've gained new, promising shinobi, perhaps we should focus on their roles in our village. They've proven to be quite reliable. They should be put to good use." Hiruzen frowned at his old friend and said, "They're genin, Danzo. They're getting used to Konoha's customs as we speak and are living under the same roof as Uzumaki Naruto." Danzo looked at the leader of the fire with a neutral, almost bored look on his face. "You suggest we wait, then? What about Uzumaki Naruto? He carries great potential, seeing how he completely humiliated Konoha's prodigy, Uchiha Sasuke. He has now been promoted to Chunin and thus, can be added to the ranks of Anbu." He narrowed his eyes as he looked at the third person. "It is also quite obvious that he's hiding something. And I'm not really sure you know the story behind his miraculous growth in strength. The boy strives to become the greatest Hokage, Danzo. He pushes himself beyond his limits, it's only natural he's grown so much." The elder with some wounds shook his head at the third's answer. "Rubbish. No one can improve that much in such little time. Have you been watching him, Danzo?" Someone looked at Konoha's leader with anger, and there was a short pause. "It is common knowledge, Sarutobi." Common knowledge that the Kyuubi Jinchuriki did not live up to his title of holding the greatest Biju in him. The Kyuubi's keeper would be a strong vessel. He was anything but, and all knew. A brain Shibi said in a low voice, then I would think this growth to be even more natural. Still loud enough for everyone to hear. Someone with a Biju as immense as the nine-tailed demon fox. I would believe him to become a force not easily matched. In a less serious case, he would growl at that. Enough already, they all said, turning to look at Nara Shikaku, the general of Konoha. If Inoichi says so, you can trust those Suna and Oto kids, Shikaku said. Inoichi nodded his head, and Shikaku went on. This meeting was about them, not about Uzumaki Naruto. Why do meetings here always get dragged out to troublesome cases? This meeting's subject has already been dealt with. I want to go home. The third smiled to himself because he knew Shikaku had seen the quick look between him and Inoichi. I agree, meeting adjourned. It was clear that Danzo was upset as he turned away. He never thought a normal person would say that. However, Yamanaka Inoichi was very serious about it. Before the two of them could really talk about his latest mind dives, Hiruzen called Jiraiya. The seal master put up a sound barrier around the office of the Hokage just to be safe. They were now having a small meeting. He's a genius. Sarutobi, the old man, laughed. Uzumaki Naruto is a genius? Yes. I've watched through Kinuta Dosu's eyes and saw him gather information in a way Jiraiya would definitely be proud of. That kid found out about the sand sound invasion before all of us. Then I watched through Sabaku no Gaara's eyes and saw how he won the Suna Genin over. If it hadn't been for him, Konoha would have been dealt more damage to. He took Suna's trump card and made him, one of Konoha's own. Hokage-sama, Naruto's strong, but he's also smart. He's gained 4 allies during this Chunin exam, without too much trouble. If I were to suggest anything, I think he should be the leader of a team, consistent of just them. Jiraiya was happy to see that his godson was getting praise. Yes, that kid would grow up. With a smile on his face, Sarutobi also looked at the Yamanaka in front of him. An Anbu squad has already taken an interest in him. He's having a mission with an Anbu captain and another Anbu member and he's being judged on his actions. Though he himself obviously doesn't know about it. Jiraiya whined and then said, Anbu, huh? Yamanaka Inoichi wanted to ask the same thing. The kid is ready for it, but is Anbu really a place for him to be? This Anbu squad might be good for him. It's Azuki Yugo's. That made Inoichi laugh. I see. Yes, that might even be better. It looked like Jiraiya was very angry. So, he's having a mission with Azuki Yugo. Now, where are they headed? Yes, I see. I now remember Sarutobi. He liked Azuki Yugo as a Konoha woman. Yes, they have a mission. They're on their way to Kumo on Route Yellow. Anbu always used more than one route to get from A to B. There were different places to eat, sleep, and hunt on each route. Some were faster than others. Jiraiya smiled and said, Yellow, huh? He said, I'm on it. And then he and the sound barrier were gone. When he left, Inoichi shook his head and frowned at the third, whose face was full of amusement. I probably should have told him Naruto's not having that mission until tomorrow. Team 7 had to show up at Training Area 39, which she didn't know. It looked like they would have a new, temporary teammate today. Sakura didn't know what he or she would be like because no one told her. Since he got out of the hospital 2 days ago, Sasuke has not been there. Would he really be ready to start new jobs already? You must be, Haruno Sakura. A lot of the time, Sakura was the first one there, so she looked shocked to see someone else standing in the clearing where they were supposed to report. Sitting on the ground and leaning against a tree, he was drawing on a scroll. Yes, and you are? She thought he would get up and offer his hand, but all he did was look back at his scroll and say, Sai. She frowned at the boy and nodded her head, Sai. He said, nice to meet you, Sai. She didn't hear back. She was about to ask the new guy another question when someone else walked into the clearing and caught her eye. She knew who he was right away. You are, This guy stared at Sakura with a bored look on his face. Sabaku no Konkaru. Don't worry about it, I don't remember your name either. It was a low voice that she let out, Haruno Sakura. A small tick appeared above her left brow. Sigh. That's how the drawing nin chose to introduce himself. Kankuru gave him a quick look and sighed. He couldn't find anything to lean on, so he sat down on the ground. So, you guys are Team 7, right? I was told to join you. Oh, I see. The woman with pink hair realized they were here to do something with them. That means Sai and Kankuru are both new to the team, right? Our other teammates are Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto, though Naruto is on a different mission. Our teacher is... Kankuru cut her off. Kankuru smiled at Sakura's slightly angry look and said, Hitaki Kakashi, yes, I know. He loved talking over women when they were talking. It was always fun to do the same thing with Tamari. He also knew everything there was to know about the genin teams for the invasion. Sure enough, things did not go as planned. The three people were greeted by Sasuke, who looked close to Sai. HN. The young assassin jumped into the tree that Sai was leaning against and picked a strong branch to sit on. He was getting ready to get bored. About 2 hours later, Kakashi walked in and saw Sasuke and Sakura being angry, Sai still drawing, and Kankuru asleep. Pakun, who seemed to appear out of nowhere, bit Kankuru on the ankle and said, well, then. Assuming introductions have been made, I'm here to let you know we'll be having a D-ranked mission. A short pause. No one expected Sasuke to respond first. He asked, what? In fact, Kakashi told him a few days ago that they would be getting higher-level missions. Well, we were supposed to be having another mission today, but someone else seemed to have finished a mission sooner than expected and nabbed ours. Kakashi smiled through his mask. I didn't think that would come from Naruto's first mission. All of a sudden, Kankuru wanted to cry. D-ranked? I think that means the same thing as in Suna. He hadn't had any D-ranked missions in Suna in a long time. What in the hell kind of torture would he be going through in Konoha? As the days went by, Shinobi went on missions with other Shinobi while Sarutobi tried out different ways to use D-ranked missions. Kinuta Dosu had missions with teams 8, 10, and 7, but he still hadn't been able to sync up with any of them at a good enough level. It's also true for Sabaku no Gaara. His two siblings were not as much of a bother. Sabaku no Kankuru did a good job with teams 7 and 10, but had not yet worked with team 8. Sabaku no Tamari had worked with 8 and 10 so far, and they would rather never work with 8 again. Unfortunately, one of the people on team 8 is very sexual. That's what she said. The samurai laughed to himself. In the end, every Inuzuka was sexy. That's what he thought. He planned to put Gaara and Dosu to work soon on a mission with Team Guide to see how things go. During this time, he also set up a chunin to teach the 4 foreign shinobi some history of Konoha, which made them unhappy. Then Hitaki Kakashi stood in front of him in his office right now. The elder spoke up as he set down a file. Do you have any idea why I called for you, Kakashi? One that said, Management of Icha volumes. Kakashi saw it. In fact, he was interested in what else was written on it. But that would come later. Yes, I think this concerns Naruto. Yes. The Anbu is very interested in Naruto. Azuki Yugo's Anbu squad specializes in infiltration. His infiltration skills are great, Kakashi. The monkey summoner tried to read Kakashi's face but couldn't. Naruto wanted to know your opinion before he would decide on what to do. Though he is now Chunin and can make the decision himself, of course. The copy nin said, yes, and he should decide for himself. Agreed. Naruto appeared next to Kakashi, which almost made him jump. But he was a Junin, and a very good one. There was no surprise in their eyes, so they didn't jump. Shit, he's getting better. I didn't feel him. I should have blew my nose before going in. Naruto quickly bowed his head and said, Hokage-sama. I've declined the offer, but Azuki Yugo and Hayate Gecko will still be training me in their respective expertise. I also wish to stay under Hitaki Kakashi's command and, if I were to take missions as a Chunin, I want Sabaku no Gaara and Kinuta Dosu as my teammates. The third asked, why those two? Kakashi didn't say anything. He was very interested in what Naruto wanted. Since the third only asked about his third request, the copy ninja thought that the first two were already granted. The blonde troublemaker smiled widely and said, hee. You're not the only one who can see all around the village, old man. I've got Fuin Bunshin all over the place. Those two can be a pain in the ass for someone else. The Sandame laughed and said, I see. In that case, I have additions to your squad, Uzumaki Naruto. Though it is up to you to decide. The blonde made a face. I have a squad. Only if you receive a mission where you are the leader. It won't happen too soon, because Kakashi will still be instructing you on how to move a team from point A to B without too much trouble. You'll still be in Team 7 for the time being. But your squad is already known. A squad with a Chunin as its leader is usually consistent of 4 subordinates. Yours will be the ones you aforementioned, and you will select 2 others from 4. The elder smiled at Naruto's uncertain look. It'll be hard, because 2 of those are also former enemies. Kakashi stood up straight. What does he think? Their names are Touya and Kosaka Hanako, and they used to be Sand and Sound Kunoichi. The other 2 you know are Hyuga Neji and Inazuka Kiba, and they are the only ones who can help you with missions. Hiruzen nodded his head at both the teacher and the student. Former Sand and Sound Nin? Asked the blonde Shunin again. How? This coming from someone who persuaded 3 Sand and 1 Sound Genin to fight alongside him. The third replied. It's still a bit questionable and they will still be watched, but for now, it seems they are innocent and knew little of the invasion. Kakashi made a face. Ibiki? Yamanaka? Yes, both. Though one of them did work for Orochimaru, so she might know something about countering their techniques. She will be watched more thoroughly. The person at the bottom of the list sighed. It'll be a while before all that happens, right? So I'm just going to join Sasuke and Sakura again. I still haven't talked to Sasuke since the Chunin exams, he said a bit hesitantly. The copy Nin told Naruto, I don't think you need to worry too much about it. He's training himself harder than before, but it doesn't look like he's holding a grudge. If anything, I think he wants to fight you again. The third coughed once. You 2 are dismissed. A number of D-ranked missions were completed over the course of several days, and Sarutobi's story was finally over. It was his duty to give it to Yamanaka Inoichi. Sasuke, Sakura, and Sai would be on Team Kakashi. Naruto would put together a Genin squad with some talented Genin, or rather, he would be the leader of the Genin squad. Gaara, Dosu, and Temari would be his aides. He had planned to put Kosaka Hanako on one of Konoha's teams, but he wasn't sure about her yet. She used to be a sound Chunin. He told him that he learned Sand and Oto had been tricked into attacking Konoha together, and as punishment, the third Hokage had turned down the request to return any captured Tsunanin. It was clear that Kosaka Hanako didn't want to stay in Konoha, even though she was a good kunoichi. She didn't know anything about Konoha to tell Suna because she had been locked up for a long time. The third Hokage thought about it for a long time. He most likely would give Hanako back to Suna because he also had the children of the late Kazekage, the Sabaku siblings. It was likely best for those 3 to stay in Konoha since they really wanted to. That meant Touya of the Sound might be going to join Naruto's cell. Hiruzen had seen the girl. She had high chakra levels and could control her cursed seal, even raising it to a higher level. This means that she would likely have a hard time with a high-leveled Chunin. She might even win. She was a wild card, but now that Orochimaru was dead, she had nothing left. The others were not the same. Kidomaru was very loyal to Orochimaru and vowed to get revenge on everyone in Konoha. Jirubu had another reaction to the death of his master. He tried to kill himself, but of course he failed. Saken was a loose cannon who would kill anything that looked like it might be his enemy, especially if it wore a Konoha hit, 8. Touya was mad, but she was mad all the time. Like Kidomaru, she didn't seem to hold a grudge, and unlike Jirubu, she hadn't given up hope. Almost everyone made her angry, but Shinobi from Konoha was still her favorite. Konoha might still care about her. She was strong, though. Putting her under a Junin like Guy or Kakashi might be a better idea. But something about the way she was acting made him think of Naruto. But the old Hokage didn't know how strong Naruto really was, and he wasn't even sure if the blonde could handle Touya. Gaara, on the other hand, made him think that Naruto could really do it. That's why he chose to do it. Next time, Gaara, Dosu, Temari, and Touya would be in Naruto's cell. Naruto asked Sasuke, "Who the hell is this guy?" as he stood in front of the Avenger and pointed at Sai. Sai just looked ahead, not even looking at the blonde or his finger. A few weeks of missions had gone by while Kakashi showed Naruto how to lead a group in a sneaky way. not telling Sasuke and Sakura what it means in a subtle way. During that time, other genin, like the Suna trio or Dosu, would sometimes join them. Naruto did not know this guy. Before he looked back at the ground, Sasuke gave both of his teammates a rolling eye. He was sitting on a rock with a view of the clearing where they usually trained. I forgot his name. Che. And you're supposed to be a Uchiha? I thought you guys remembered everything. Naruto yelled as he walked over to Sakura, who was reading a book. You guys? The Uchiha shrugged his shoulders and kept his eyes on the ground. Only the important things, Dobi. Naruto flipped him one over his shoulder, but Sasuke didn't seem to notice. He said, whatever, I'm already walking away. In the middle of all that, Sai was still looking ahead, nothing to look at, which caught Sasuke's eye after a while. Afterwards, he chose not to care about awkward kids who looked at nothing. When Naruto came over to Sakura, he asked, Yo, Sakura-chan. What are you reading? It had been an hour, but Kakashi still hadn't shown up. Sasuke-kun gave me a book on fire jutsu. I'm trying to learn the Housenka no Jutsu. It costs less chakra than the Gokyaku, but may take more, depending on how many fire I want to release. This technique may be more suitable to me than the Gokyaku, the pinkhead said. Ooh. Wanna try it out on me? Sakura whimpered. Not now, Naruto. Things have been pretty normal lately, the bookworm thought as she listened to Naruto talk about how he couldn't be hurt by fire. It looked like Naruto and Sasuke-kun were going to fight right away, but they're fine. So happy is Sasuke-kun that she frowned and didn't really read the scroll in her hands. But why is Sai still here? Now that Naruto is back, we're whole again, right? Oi, Sakura-chan. You're boring, I'm gonna ask the new kid to spar with me. Naruto caught Sakura's book in the back of his head and asked, what did you say? Who's boring? This would have been true if Fuin Bunshin wasn't telling him to duck. He changed his Fuin Bunshin so that now only he could hear them. Some were changed in ways that everyone could hear, like the one that was following Team 8 through the Forest of Death. Sakura clenched her teeth and didn't think much about how easily Naruto ducked when he was facing away from her. Throw it back to me, Naruto. The blonde looked down at her and picked up the book. Why the hell did you throw it in the first place? Sakura grabbed the book, shook her head, and kept reading. One more thing that's different is that Naruto isn't so crazy about me anymore. At the sight of Sai writing on a scroll with ink, Naruto said, Oi, Sumi-san. Sumi meant, ink. Can you fight or can you only draw? The boy with black hair just kept drawing, which made the blonde a little mad. Hey, you want to be in our team, right? How about you start talking back when people talk to you, It was a surprise to the Jinchuriki when Sai suddenly spoke, Oh. I am your replacement in Team 7. My name is Sai, it's nice to meet you. My replacement? Oh. I didn't realize you have hearing loss. I guess that's why you talk so loudly and annoyingly. I'm sorry I didn't realize that, Uzumaki Naruto-san, Sai said in a slightly, but not really, louder voice. Before Naruto could probably hurt him, Sasuke said, Wait a minute, his replacement? Oh. You have hearing loss like we? Sai fell silent. The Uchiha asked, What do you mean? Is it because he got promoted to Chunin? I don't have any interest in knowing why I am to replace Naruto-san, so I do not know. I merely am following orders. Naruto? You're leaving the team? Asked Sakura, who had joined the conversation. Why? The blonde glared at Sai and said, Hell if I know. This is the first time I've heard of it. How do you know this? His answer was, It is my mission. Heaved a sigh. So the last person he had to beat was leaving Team 7? Is it true that this Sai was strong? Then he only hoped that he would make him stronger, Naruto. The Sharingan user said with confidence, I haven't forgotten about our match in the Chunin exams. One day, we'll have a rematch. The outcome will be different then. Get as strong as you can, cause you won't be able to keep up otherwise. Hey, we'll see about that, bastard, yo. As for Kakashi, no one replied, not really, at least. Why is Naruto leaving the team? You know, it's pretty hard to lead a team, Kakashi said as he walked up to the blonde who was panting. The Junin had given each of his students a separate task to do. From what I could tell, Naruto wasn't working on his task. What are you working on? He got a laugh in return. It's a secret, sensei. Pretty tiring, though. Figures. The lazy teacher cheated on his student, who would soon no longer be a student. You need advice. Naruto looked his sensei straight in the eye. Now that you mention it, I've been trying to create food and bunshin. You know anything about those? I've actually never seen those. I know how to create Raiden Bunshin. I just make sure all of the chakra I use to create a clone is infused, completely, with lightning. The result is a clone I usually use for diversions, although it can actually attack with electricity, but electricity alone. I thought so. Here. Naruto sealed himself and muttered, food and bunshin. But all that happened next to him was a small tornado that went away almost right away. I always hate the bunshin technique. It gives me so much trouble whenever I work on one type the first time. Kakashi laughed. Okay, I see. I think you should make them more often to get a feel for how much chakra you need for one clone. Kakashi turned away when he saw his subordinate nod once. Hey, Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi asked with a turn of his head. He had already put out his hand to grab Icha. Keep a good eye on Sasuke. After staring for a moment, Kakashi chose to shrug. Don't worry. I always keep a good eye on my students. Even former ones. Anything else? Naruto gave a head nod. Yeah. Hokage-sama told me I would get 2 ninja who were from Sand and Sound, in my squad. I don't really know how to deal with that. I mean, Gaara and the others, I know I can trust them. But those 2 he mentioned, I don't even remember their names. I wouldn't worry too much about it, Naruto. They've been put through a serious trial, performed by Konoha's 2 best interrogators. Yamanaka Inoichi can infiltrate a person's mind, learning everything about them. Morino Ibiki is an interrogator, but also a torture specialist. If anyone could get past him and be proven innocent, I wouldn't be concerned about it. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki wasn't so receptive. If you say so, Kakashi-sensei. He thought about what to say for a moment before continuing. What if I find them not loyal enough for Konoha? What if I think they're not to be trusted? Yeah, what if I think they're an enemy to Konoha? Am I allowed to kill them? Even if it is by Hokage's orders that they've been put on my team? Even if, as you say, they've been put through various tests to prove they mean no harm to our village? Kakashi paused and thought about it for a moment before taking his hand off the Icha book. If you think they're an enemy, you should report it to the Hokage. By the time you will meet them, it may have already been decided they're to be your subordinates. One of the rules in Konoha is not to kill your own. It makes perfect sense, right? I'm not allowed to kill you, even if I think you're an enemy to Konoha right now. I'll have to prove it first. Since you are already my student, I can't just go killing my students without a very, very good reason. Heaved a sigh. Of course. Now, then. My advice to you as a leader is, beware of your surroundings, beware of your destination and beware of your comrades, in that order. Naruto said, and chose to write that down. Thanks, sensei. You're welcome, Naruto. I'll be off, then. State your purpose. Why the hell would I tell a brat like you, huh? You'd do well to listen, outsider. My friend here is not one who kills without pause. Hey, don't we have 2 cold ones here? I thought Konoha was a warm and cozy place. Why don't you 2 morons turn around and start minding your own damn business? You are not from Konoha. You are in Konoha now. State your purpose. Gaara said again. It was no longer his Tsunade 8. He had a Konoha headband on instead, which was tied around his waist. Kinuta Dosu stood next to him and also looked at the 4 Kumo nin in front of them with anger. The person who used to be Sound Genin now wore a Konoha Hite 8 as well. There was no way they were loyal to Konoha, but they were loyal to their friend Uzumaki Naruto. What if these 2 are important people in Konoha? What if, by ignoring their questions, a war would erupt between Kumo and Konoha? What if it's already too late to prevent it? Never bother answering their questions anymore. We should kill them right here and now, to prevent a war. Gaara's gourd was already open, and Dosu smiled and got ready to fight. Omoi, get out of the way. And put your sword away, she told them. Even though she was only in charge for a short time, everyone paid attention. We have been invited to Konoha. There is no need for all of this. Invited? Why should we believe that? The voice came from a tree, and Omoi, Karui, Samui, and their temporary captain, Yugito ni, all looked up at it. They saw a blonde kunoichi who was carrying a big fan on her back. Before she spoke, only Yugito and Samui could feel her. These are all just genin, Yugito thought. Yet, they're already very talented. Hey, watch your mouth. Yugito told the girl with red hair to be quiet, Karui. Our Raikage is on a visit. We are his guards. A laugh came from behind them all of a sudden. Yugito's eyes got really big. Not possible. I didn't feel this, she said as she turned around. Boy. Samui looked a little tense as she turned around too. That's hard for me to believe, Naruto said as he crossed his arms. You four are, more likely, a backup team. I'm sure the Raikage would want stronger guards. What? Karui was furious, and the others didn't like being called names either. Just a narrowed eye and a frown were all Yugito could say. There's something wrong. He's standing right in front of me, but I still can't feel him. She took a quick sniff and knew she could still smell him. Because she had Biju in her, she could sense things better. But she was scared. The shinobi could sense everyone around her from at least a mile away. That kid didn't have any chakra around him at all. You are from Kumo. Really, Konoha and Kumo don't get along with each other, do they? Naruto shunned and stood in front of Gaara and Dosu, which made Team Yugito turn around again. Yugito knew what was going on. That was Shunshin. Definitely needs chakra and a lot of speed to be done, and yet no trace of any chakra used. This kid is great. To be able to completely block chakra like that, even from me. Naruto asked, are you the captain? It dawned on Yugito that the three Konoha nin behind the boy were no longer talking. They follow him. Care to give me a better reason why I should not kill all of you right here? Then it came. Killer willing. This kid could dish out this much? She was used to it, but she was shocked. The others, including Samui, weren't ready, though. They couldn't move at all. This kid is dressed in a Konoha Chunin uniform. I'm a Junin, and everyone who works for me is a Chunin. How does Konoha rank its shinobi these days? There were more strange things, though. His own subordinates weren't affected, and he didn't use any chakra to quench this huge thirst for blood. What this meant was that he had very precise control over his killer intent and used something else to make his enemies afraid. What was it? What's the matter? Cat got your tongue. Oh, it always made her mad when people said that. When Yugito rushed forward to teach the boy some manners, she was hit hard in the face and knocked over into a tree behind her. After that, Naruto said, whoa, didn't think you'd attack me first. As everything went on, Gaara, Dosu, and Temari couldn't see where Naruto was going because he was still standing where he was. But they were used to it from him by now. Samui, Karui, and Omoi were shocked. In one moment, Yugito was running so fast that they couldn't keep up with her. In the next, she was lying on the ground with pieces of tree trunk wrapped around her. Naruto's eyes got very big when Yugito saw them. But now I can attack back. Konoha won't be in any danger. I won't let it happen, Yugito said. As Naruto began to walk toward Yugito, Samui and the others still couldn't move. Naruto was about to do something crazy when Kakashi showed up next to him. Say, a Konoha Junin, Yugito was ready to keep fighting even though Naruto had hit him hard. Naruto, stop. They're here to protect their cage. Did you start this? The copy ninja asked his blonde student as he looked at the three Kumo Chunin who could move again. Hey, before I did anything, they refused to answer Gaara, who wanted to know why they were here. They did answer eventually, but what they said was not really believable. I mean, look at how easily I took care of their leader. How can they be guards for a cage? Yugito was walking back after getting better. Hitaki Kakashi is the copy ninja of that picture. He also called the kid Naruto, right? She chose to correct Naruto's statement. You caught me off guard, brat. That won't happen again. He said, sure, and then he turned away from her and her group. The new team leader told them, let's go. See you later, Kakashi-sensei. He waved his hand over his shoulder and said, my apologies for his behavior. He doesn't take well to anything that might endanger the safety of Konoha. Karui looked first at the Konoha Junin and then at the backs of Team Naruto as they ran away. I still can't believe he beat Yugito-sensei in that fight. As he stood next to her, Omoi put his hand on her shoulder. He was probably lucky. I mean, Yugito-sensei kicks ass once she really gets going. Samantha, the third person on Team Yugito, spoke up for the first time. She said, perhaps. But he's strong. I think we were lucky. Kakashi made a face at Yugito's workers. Well, get ready to get to know them better. They will be with you during your stay in Konoha. Kumo's Jinchuriki gave a head nod. Based on those eyes, I think he's also a Jinchuriki. Time to find out more about them, because their ranks are very different from ours, she said with a sigh and began using some light healing jutsu on her face. We'll be heading off, then, Kakashi-san. Kakashi watched them walk away from the corner of his eye and said, of course. Things will be tough for them. So Otto and Suna attacked Konoha, but Konoha is completely unharmed. The Raikage was sitting across from the Hokage in his office. I must say, that's pretty good. I take it you knew beforehand? Asked Hiruzen. That's a logical assumption. We had heard rumors about an attack, so we tightened security. But that is all we did. 2 countries attack you, and you're fine. That's pretty amazing, the Raikage, who was also known as said. I've come here to talk about certain suspicions I have. Suspicions? What do you mean? I'm sure you've heard of a group called Akatsuki, said as he watched the older man nod. S-ranked criminals, all missing nin. Jiraiya had told the third this. Now, it has come to my attention that Orochimaru is a member of the Akatsuki. So, did Suna and Otto use Orochimaru and thus, Akatsuki, to attack Konoha? I've heard Orochimaru was the leader of Otto. I've also heard he was in Akatsuki, but that he had run away from the organization. The Raikage gave me a strange look. He ran away? Someone like Orochimaru? It's what my intel brought me, so it's not really a fact that he left. They truly might have hired Akatsuki, then. I have more information concerning Akatsuki being used by Earth Country, and rumors have it its roots lie in Kirigakure. Hiruzen replied, you seem to know a lot, Raikage Dono. I take it you're going somewhere with this? The younger of the 2 Kages gave one nod. I have information regarding Akatsuki, but I believe you do, too. I've received word that the organization is after the Biju. So they're after all the Jinchuriki. I have 2 under my command. You have at least 1, I believe. I know not what happened 14 years ago, but I don't believe something like the Kyuubi can be killed. But, my sensor Shinobi have not sensed a Jinchuriki-like presence in Konoha. Hiruzen gave a smile. Naruto wouldn't be able to be found because his outfit makes it so easy for him to control his chakra. The same could be said about Gaara with the Gogyu Fuin on his stomach. So, what are you saying? I'm saying you can hide your shinobi well. My information gatherers are not ignorant, Hokage Dono. We've heard of Suna's Jinchuriki, Sabaku no Gaara. How he turned from Sanagakure to Konohagakure. He is definitely the Ichibi Jinchuriki. But Konoha is also housing the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. The Sandaime gave a puzzled look. You make a lot of assumptions, Raikage Dono. Folded his arms and said, look. We have the Nibi Jinchuriki and the Hachibi Jinchuriki, which you probably already knew. This organization is after my shinobi and after yours. I don't really trust Kirigakure or Iwagakure, because of their involvements with this Akatsuki. The alliance between Konoha and Suna has been broken due to the invasion, and Suna is also involved with Akatsuki. I'm guessing you know by now where I'm going with this. If I didn't know any better, I'd say you were offering an alliance? There was a serious look from the Raikage to the third. Yes, but I have a demand. One demand. The third laughed, ignoring how surprised he was at first. You speak as if we've already consented. I alone cannot decide whether Kumo and Konoha will be allied forces. True. But when you have your meeting with your council, I want you to let my demand be known. The person calling monkeys nodded. Which is? I want Danzo. The third pondered the Raikage's words as he sat at his desk. Where the leader of the cloud had demands, the third also had demands. Taking in consideration the last alliance Fire had with Lightning, Hiruzen knew he had the right to call in more demands than the other. But he actually only had one in mind. To let Naruto and his team stay in Kumo for a week and learn of the village from the inside. This of course would be allowed, since the Raikage would have them all watched. But Naruto had his Fuin Bunshin now. Those couldn't even be sensed by Sensor Nin. And he knew for a fact that Kumo didn't have shinobi like the Hyuga, the Aburame or the Inuzuka, superior tracker nin, so to send in Naruto was perfect. With this, the blonde would get past the barrier that was protecting every village, get inside and infiltrate without worry. Perfect. He would know everything about Kumo. The fire leader nodded his head as he started listing the things he wanted Naruto to find out while he would be there. Since the mission wasn't so hard, Naruto decided to do it half-assed. As far as he knew, the Raikage would only be staying here a few days. So he split up his own team in groups. He would be with Gaara, while the other group was Dosu, Temari and Kankuro. At the moment, he and Gaara weren't watching the Kumo team. Of course, Naruto did leave a few Fuin Bunshin around the other half of his team. But now, Gaara and he were somewhere else entirely. The Valley of the End. Why are we here, Naruto? The Shukaku Jinchuriki asked as he and Naruto were walking through the woods. The Chunin of the two gave a short chuckle of amusement. To train, of course. Since you're a Jinchuriki like I am, I think we're best suited to train with one another, right? We can help each other. Gaara didn't know what to train in considering his captive Biju, but shrugged nonetheless. I've learned something interesting, Gaara. The blonde started with a vicious grin. You're going to love it. I couldn't show you this before, because we weren't true comrades before. But now I can help you. He stopped walking and Gaara followed suit. The thing is, this thing we're going to do is going to unleash a massive load of chakra. Mainly, yours. So I don't want to be too close to Konoha when we do this. What do you mean? The redhead didn't understand at all. The Gogyu Fuin on your stomach is something I meant to be temporarily. I have a permanent solution. Naruto watched Gaara nod. We're going to fight the Shukaku, together. I've learned how to completely overtake the Kyuubi. You and me are going to overtake the Shukaku. Before we do that, though, you're going to have to do a few things. We're going to fight the Shukaku? Gaara was a confident guy, he knew he was strong. But he was no fool, there was no way he could take on a Biju. Gaara. Naruto started to reassure him. Don't worry, I've got the Kyuubi on my side, kind of. The redhead swallowed slowly, not sure of what to say. Now, for this to work, you're going to go through a trial. The blonde started walking again. Which is why we're here. In Kumo, they have a place similar to this, where you can face yourself. The former Suna Nin started following after the blonde again. Naruto moved through a few bushes to reach the edge of a cliff. In the distance they could see the waterfall between the two stone statues. The statues of Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara. That's a waterfall of truth. Kaigen no Heisen. A place where you will face the evil, you. Evil. Gaara repeated. Naruto smiled a small, sad smile. Not necessarily evil. But for you, it'll probably be familiar. You'll face the hatred inside you, to overcome it. When I first met you, I think you let that side of you overrule you. He paused. This will be hard, mental-wise, but it needs to be done before we can face the Shukaku. While two of his Fuin Bunshin, 20 or so Kage Bunshin and few normal Bunshin were watching over Gaara as he was seated in front of the Waterfall of Truth, Naruto himself decided to get some training in. Training with no privy eyes. He was a bit worried about Gaara and even about facing the Shukaku, but he remembered when his future self let him do the same. Flashback, he knew he wasn't really alright with how the villagers all regarded him. He always laughed it off, saying it was okay to be alone. To hate it and ignored. To be considered a demon, scum and worse. But he was far from alright with it. And this proved it. You should burn the entire village down to the ground. He had those thoughts, many times. You should murder every single villager and shinobi with your utmost attention, murder them slowly and make them suffer as long as possible. Yup, he recognized what he was hearing as he was watching his own reflection standing in front of him. Namikaze-sensei told him this was another part of himself. A part that hid inside of him. The hatred, deep inside of him. You know I'm right and you agree with me, and he did agree with him, somewhat. He at least understood why his other half was saying these things. But he now knew who his parents were, he knew what his destiny was, he knew what kind of power resided within him. He also knew that the part of him that was standing in front of him was not only his hatred. It was everything he denied to let out. The figure in front of him held his most deepest secrets and emotions. And just like him, he had nowhere to release it, so he spoke back. Let's do it together. We shouldn't be ignoring ourselves any longer. And then he had to fight the Kyuubi. He had to use everything he had to defeat the Biju. His Madan ninjutsu, several kinjutsu, food and ninjutsu, his senjutsu and so much chakra. Even then, the Kyuubi had the upper hand, but he wasn't alone in this. His future self was lending him a hand, throwing a casual Rasen shuriken every now and then and keeping the Kyuubi busy while the younger Naruto would pull with all his might at the Kyuubi's chakra. He eventually did get all of the Kyuubi's chakra and he and his future self stood in front of a chakra-depleted Kyuubi, a defeated Biju. So what now? The voice of a demon boomed over them. Victory seems to be yours, at the moment. But that chakra will eventually come back to me. You're wrong. And then something happened that made the Kyuubi widen his eyes. The older-looking Naruto summoned a scroll out of thin air and turned it so the Kyuubi could see the content written on it. This is a key. A key for Naruto's Shikifuin. Now, we've obviously already used this key to open the door of your cage. This key has 3 functions, though. It can become a source for lingering chakra. Mainly, the chakra you've just given Naruto. What? Since the Kyuubi was powerless without its chakra, the future Naruto threw several Rasen shuriken the Kyuubi's way, forcing the Kyuubi to jump back a bit. And then the great fox found himself locked in a cage again. A different cage than before. I'm sorry I have to do this, Kyuubi. In time, I'll hopefully find a way to release you without anyone getting hurt. The future Naruto hoped his younger self would. This key can also moderate the seal. The older Naruto looked a bit sad. Naruto, we're done here. The younger Naruto was glowing with a massive amount of chakra around him, but it didn't faze the older one bit. We have a lot to discuss now that you have access to all of the Kyuubi's chakra. End flashback. Man, Namikaze-sensei is so powerful, Naruto thought as he remembered the fight with the Kyuubi. He also recalled the conversation he had with his future self after that fight. The Kyuubi was an entity full of hatred, but he too was part of a grander scheme. The blonde wasn't in sage mode as he formed a Rasen shuriken and aimed it at the sky. I can already throw it without being in sage mode, but can I turn it up a notch? As he threw the chakra shuriken skywards, he immediately performed a seal. Food and cage Rasen shuriken. And then he saw nothing but blackness. Hand seals flashed in the middle of the night and the result was a small campfire. They had just finished a mission and were already returning back to their village. The mission was a simple C-ranked 1. Hitaki Kakashi sat down in front of the fire and watched his students do the same. Sai will start first watch, the rest of us will get some sleep until we've all had our turns. After Sai, it's Sasuke's turn, then Sakura and finally, me. Sakura slightly glared at Sai, before lying down in her sleeping bag. I wish I was the first to stand watch. The first to have guard duty would have the longest sleep without having to be awoken. The pink-haired Kunoichi turned towards Kakashi. Nay, Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi opened his single eye, just barely visible to Sakura thanks to the fire. Have you heard anything about Naruto? She asked. Sasuke didn't turn in his sleeping bag, but he was curious about it, too. Well, there's nothing that's classified, so I can tell them everything I know. Of course, the things about Naruto that were classified, Kakashi didn't know himself either. What do you want to know? What's he doing now? The veteran shinobi nodded his head. Well, he has guard duty in Konoha. That sounds pretty simple. I figured he would be getting dangerous missions outside of Konoha. Sakura surmised as she twisted her feet in and over each other in her sleeping bag. While it might not be very dangerous, it is very important. The Raikage is currently staying in the Leaf Village, and Naruto's team is in charge of guarding and watching the Raikage's guards. Sakura let out an impressed sound. Naruto's team? Who's in his team? Both Sakura and Kakashi were surprised that Sasuke had asked the question. They both figured the Uchiha was already asleep. As far as I know, Kakashi seemed to think. It's those former Sunanin, the Sabaku siblings, don't know if they're all in his team, though, and that former Sound Genin, that bandaged guy. I don't really remember his name, though. Kinuta Dosu. Sasuke finished. He wouldn't forget how Dosu and those 2 other Sound Nin had defeated him in the Forest of Death. Yeah, and those Sabaku are Gaara, Temari and Konkuru. Sakura added. They're all pretty strong. So, who's their instructor? Sasuke continued. Naruto is. Kakashi answered as if it was most obvious thing in the world. Those others are still genin. Sakura's and Sasuke's eyes were wide open as they tried to digest this information. I've also heard that his team isn't complete yet. Kakashi let the silence linger for a moment. After a while, he decided to motivate Sasuke further with his training and added. Also, he was asked to join the Anbu a few weeks ago. He had a trial he aced perfectly, but he declined. Even in his head, Sasuke was completely speechless and Sakura was much the same. That's all I know. I haven't talked that much with him ever since the Chunin exams. It seems you two haven't either. They were both silent as they contemplated the statement. Nay, Kakashi-sensei. Sakura whispered. What about this Sai? He's really strange. The copy nin pondered a bit whether or not to share the information he had on Sai. Well, he's a former Anbu. Again, his two students were speechless. Sasuke knew Sai was higher ranked than Genin, but, Anbu? The Uchiha grinned. Yes, he would have to surpass this weird ink guy. He would be one step closer to crushing Itachi. A week had passed and Naruto and Gaara were slowly walking through the gate's granting entrance to the Leaf. Gaara looked different, a lot different. He no longer had the gourd on his back and he seemed less tense. Well, a little. A few days ago, 6 to be exact, Naruto had told Temari, Konkuru and Dosu that he and Gaara would be gone for a few days in regards to helping Gaara with a new technique. The blonde would be leaving a shadow clone of him and a hanged shadow clone of Gaara so it wouldn't be too suspicious. And now, the duo were headed for the others, ready to let them go home so they could guard the Kumo team for the last 2 days they'd be staying in Konoha. Apparently, the Raikage was just about ready with his business in Konoha. Naruto looked sideways and grinned at Gaara, who didn't notice. The blonde had given the redhead the same outfit he was wearing. Naruto had slightly changed his appearance, but all the seals were still the same. Now that he was a Chunin, he had to change his outfit slightly. He implemented his Chunin vest with the same seals as his old vest. His Chunin vest was dark red, though. His fingerless gloves were still black, as were his pants, that now reached just above his ankles. He had dark red sandals, with a few new seals on them, and he now had 2 dark red sheaths on his back for swords that weren't in it. Gaara knew Naruto only had 1 sword, so he never did understand why the blonde had 2 sheaths. And if the blonde had to give an answer to the question, why 2, he wouldn't have the answer either. But of the 2, Gaara changed his appearance more. He now wore the same outfit as Naruto, with a lot less seals. Now that he and the Shukaku were on better terms with one another, which was very different than Naruto's relationship with the Kyuubi, Gaara's chakra presence grew significantly. Naruto saw no other way than to force his special shinobi outfit on Gaara, which made him invisible even to censor nin. And the absence of the gourd. It was simple, he didn't need it anymore. His shield of sand and his armor of sand were now automatic and drew sand from around him, not from the gourd. But where Naruto's outfit was black and dark red, Gaara's was black and dark brown. The two may have no chakra presence thanks to their outfits, but everyone knew they were not to be messed with as they walked without a care in the world. Naruto had told him about the Akatsuki. Gaara didn't like it that an organization was after them for their biju, so he decided to train as hard as he could as well. Naruto had named Gaara second in command in his team and he would be a damn powerful second in command. Gu Gaara. The Shukaku Jinchuriki grinned at Temari, which didn't go by unnoticed. Even after the siblings came across Naruto, Gaara rarely smiled. Haha, your sister's completely dumbstruck, Gaara-chan. Hush, Shukaku. And I'd prefer you call me just Gaara, remember? Not gonna happen, human. Gaara snarled as he heard the Shukaku laugh at him in his head. Damn raccoon. Where's your gourd, Gaara? Kankuro asked as he stepped in line with Temari. I have no need for it anymore. Gaara answered. Dosu stepped on the other side of Temari. Interesting. You now have the exact same presence as Naruto. It's the outfit, I assume. Naruto shot the former sound nin an amused glance. How do you know? Several frequencies. The bandaged nin seemed thoughtful. It erases a lot of things, but not sound nor smell. That outfit, it proves very advantageous. The blonde grinned at Dosu. You guys want it, too. I kinda like the way I look now. The puppeteer of the group frowned. The Kumo team was elsewhere at the moment, but Naruto had already sent many Fuin Bunshin and Kage Bunshin transformed as them after them. Seriously, Kankuro, with all the makeup and stuff. Naruto chuckled. It's not makeup, bastard. You have more, then. The sound user asked as he ignored the squabble and took one step forward, slightly interested. Nope, Kyuubi's vessel answered. I can make it so that your current outfits have the same attributes as mine. Just hand me your clothes and stuff and I'll fix it for all of them. After you wash them, though, I'll have to redo it. Tamari seemed satisfied with that and Kankuro even more. Good, your outfit is dandy and all, but I like mine better. So it's Fuinjutsu. Dosu concluded. Intriguing. That Orochimaru was never any good with those arts. Anyway, drop off sets of your clothes at my place tomorrow, since all of you now have a place of your own. Naruto ordered. For now, Gaara and me are going to babysit the Kumo team. You guys go get some rest or go train or something. Tamari gave Gaara one last meaningful glance. A glance of pride and respect. She quickly followed after Dosu and Kankuro, who were chatting away. Hey, we're pretty awesome, Gaara. The redhead couldn't help but chuckle. Thank you, Uzumaki Naruto. For everything. Gaara hadn't felt this good in a very long time. He had a home now, family and even friends. And he felt stronger than ever. Ever since the Chunin exams, she hadn't been taking it easy. She trained more and more, but still had trouble against her teammates. Shino, in particular. At the moment, she was seated against a tree, panting wildly, while Kurenai was standing next to her, observing the spar between Kiba and Shino with the utmost attention. Kiba and Akamaru were a lot faster than Shino, as they were jumping around the bug user with ease, whilst being mindful of the bugs Shino was spreading around. Che, you should know by now I can tell when there's a bug on me. Shino wasn't standing still either, though. Kiba was a vexing opponent for him, but one who made him stronger. Kiba couldn't get too close to Shino, without risking getting too many draining bugs on him. But Shino, in turn, would always have to watch out for that disgusting P attack from Akamaru, or the occasional Gatsuga that would rip through the clearing. Which was nothing Shino couldn't handle, of course. Kurenai smirked at her students, as they seemed to be about equal. And then she flinched as Naruto and Gaara walked by her, being careful not to disturb the spar. The Genjutsu mistress hadn't sensed them approaching at all. Nah, Naruto-kun. The Uzumaki and the Sabaku stopped walking to turn and look at Hinata. Naruto nodded at her with a genuine smile on his face. Hinata, how's it going? Hinata gathered some courage. I'm fine. How are you, Naruto-kun? Never better. The blonde replied, before he pointed at Gaara with his thumb. This here's Gaara. Perhaps you remember him, from the Chunin exams. Why yes, nice to meet you, Gaara-kun, I am Hyuga Hinata. She bowed politely. Kiba and Shino had stopped sparring and were watching the interactions. They were surprised, however, as they saw Gaara bow in return, once. Likewise, Hinata-san. I've heard about Naruto getting his own team, Kurenai mused. It seems this Gaara has turned out for the better. Whoa, they seem like really good friends, huh, Shino? Kiba whispered to his teammate as they stood a small distance away from the others. Their team had watched how Gaara had slaughtered a team from the rain in the Forest of Death. They had also heard the redhead say they would go after Uzumaki Naruto after that. Shino, at the time, had spoken to the Fuin Bunshin which was supposedly protecting them during the Forest of Death test and asked him if he knew that Gaara, who was still a Sand Shinobi back then, was after him. They never did get an answer for that one. But now they saw the two of them being friends. He sure knows who to pick as friends. The dog user gestured for Akamaru to follow him to where the others were standing. Shino stayed where he stood, frowning at both Gaara and Naruto. They both seem without chakra, but my bugs know better. Yo, Naruto, how's life? The Inuzuka yelled as he joined the others. You're a Chunin now, right? Yeah, life's great. The blonde replied, giving a thumbs up. How's training? Hiba gave him a sour look, nodding his backwards, at where the bug user was still standing. Training with Shino is always so annoying. Keep it up and you're gonna sound like Shikamaru. Naruto joked. Naruto-kun. Naruto was surprised as Kurenai was the one who asked for his attention. If you still wish, I can help you with your genjutsu now. I've found myself with spare time ever since the Chunin exams. Naruto leveled a mild glare at the woman for the shortest of moments, but let it swim away from his face. Thanks, I guess, but I already have someone working with me on that. He grumbled a bit and continued mumbling something about awkward situations. Gaara, let's go. For what it's worth, I apologize for not being able to help you before. Hiba suddenly was reminded how Naruto came looking for their sensei's help months ago and turned from his teacher to the duo walking away to see Naruto wave his arm over his shoulder. Yeah, whatever. Hey, she apologized, Naruto. Hiba yelled, standing up for his teacher. Naruto turned and sent a red-eyed glare Kiba's way, which made the dog-like boy flinch, before turning back around. Like I said, whatever. It's okay, Hiba. Kurenai put a hand on her subordinate's shoulder. Naruto-kun has had it pretty rough. I understand his response. What do you mean, he's had it rough? Hiba was glaring at the retreating backs of Gaara and Naruto as Shino joined them. What the hell? His eyes seemed red just then. Do you remember how you treated him when he asked me for help, Hiba? How you said he had no friends. How you seemed to hate him, even. Kurenai watched realization hit Kiba's face. Well, you weren't the only one who felt that way about him. Everyone felt that way. Shino continued the explanation. I have observed. He is hated for reasons unknown to me. But if I were to say, I don't think he deserves such hate for simple pranks he performed during his younger days. Kurenai nodded, seeing how Shino understood he wasn't hated because of the pranks, but because of something else entirely. Correct, Shino, was all she said to confirm Shino's silent question. The Aburame nodded his head, his deduction skills were top-notch, as always. Naruto-kun, Shino, Hiba and even Kurenai were surprised to see Hinata suddenly running after the duo. Wait, Hinata. Hiba went to jump after her, but was stopped by Kurenai. Let her go, I think this could be interesting. Their teacher said. She shook her head at Shino, who still sent a few bugs after Hinata. It's good that he's protective of his team. Naruto-kun. The two Jinchuriki were already having a conversation away from Team 8, when Hinata was nearing them. Hinata, what's wrong? Naruto turned, giving the female Hyuga his full attention. Hinata turned red. This was probably the first time she ever had Naruto looking at her like this. Anyo. Naruto then noticed Hinata had changed a bit. She seemed a bit more confident in her appearance. Her dark blue hair now reached just below her shoulders and her bangs still covering the upper half of her eyes. You look good, Hinata. He calmly let out, not realizing what those words would mean to Hinata, who turned even more red now. Are you alright? Seeing Hinata's face, he figured she'd caught a cold or something. We're on our way to a mission right now. You wanna join us, Hinata? It's boring guard duty and no one ever told me I couldn't bring more people with me, so. Hinata looked up to see Naruto staring at her, while Gaara had his arms folded over one another, also staring at her. Why yes. Maybe you can tell me what you wanted to say to me on the way, Naruto smiled as he turned again. Let's go. As soon as Naruto, Gaara and Hinata landed on a roof of the building where the Kumo nins were residing in, the cage bunshin Naruto had created, hanged into his current team, was dispelled on the opposite building. The blonde had made his cage bunshin transform into his own team to make it look like he was still doing his mission. Now he was just really doing it. Hey, now that you're here, Hinata, could you use Byakugan to see what these Kumo shinobi are doing in their own apartment? The Chunin asked. Why yes. After a moment's hesitation, Byakugan. Gaara chose to sit down on the edge of the building and watched villagers do their daily business down in the streets. One of them is still sleeping. The male of the team. Hinata started. The two women are talking to each other. You know, I was always wondering if a Hyuga could read lips. Can you, Hinata? After watching her shake her head, Naruto continued. It might come in handy, especially since you have that Byakugan. He then realized something. Wait a minute, 2 women. Where's the third? Be behind us, Hinata answered, slightly afraid. Naruto and Gaara calmly turned their heads. You're not the only ones capable of sneaking up on someone. Yugito narrowed her eyes at the 3 of them. You two haven't been watching us for quite some time. The Nekomata Jinchuriki let out, addressing both Naruto and Gaara. I can easily distinguish a clone from a real shinobi, boy. Naruto grinned at her, while Gaara turned back to the street below. Hinata didn't know how to act, but deactivated her Byakugan. It seems I can't sense the other either now. Naruto saw she was talking about Gaara as she nodded towards him. You have an interesting team, Uzumaki Naruto. Raikage-sama is almost finished with his business here in Konoha. You seem to be wanting something, ni Yugito. The blonde reacted, walking up to the slightly taller Kumo Kunoichi. When they received their mission, Naruto learned all their full names. A spar, your team against my team. You wish to see how Konoha ranks its shinobi? Or do you want to find out what skills my team possesses? The blonde retorted, I don't see why I should agree to this. I don't trust you. A chuckle followed. Of course you don't. She wanted to say more, but Naruto continued to speak. My team is consistent of genin, yours of chunin. Why would you even suggest something like this in the first place? It intrigues me, your team seems oddly put together. Yugito answered honestly. Kumo already has a lot of intel on Konoha, and I assume it's the same the other way around. I'm not interested in finding out more. I'm interested in why they put all of the remnants of the invasion under your command. Remnants, Naruto repeated. The children of the Cage. Yugito grinned as Gaara turned his head, at least a bit interested now. And an Oto Nin. The blonde Chunin snarled. Are you? Gaara all of a sudden cut him off. Uzumaki Taiko. He called me captain. Inwardly, Naruto frowned. I will face her team, alone. The Kumo Junin snorted. You think you can face 3 Chunin by yourself? Trust me, I know of your specialties, but that doesn't matter. With specialties, she definitely meant Jinchuriki. Naruto narrowed his eyes. She knows. Does she know I am 1, 2? We will see. I have never been defeated by anyone except Uzumaki Taiko. I hardly believe anyone can defeat me as I am now. Fu, you've got a lot of arrogance, boy. Yugito whistled, and while Naruto had to agree, he understood. Managing to overcome your Biju was no small feat, and Gaara really did feel like he was on top of the world. Alright, if you insist, my team versus one of your subordinates. She smirked like a cat. All of your subordinates carry the same rank as I. 3 Chunin versus Gaara, I don't think that's fair. Hey, he suggested it. Her smirk didn't vanish. Naruto suddenly smirked back. No, I mean, perhaps you should help your subordinates. I have faith in Gaara. But to make things interesting, how about a bet? Samui didn't like it, not one bit. Their temporary teacher wanted them to face off against a subordinate of a Chunin. The 3 of them, against a genin. She frowned at the red-haired boy standing a small distance in front of them. He looked intimidating, but his rank was still genin. But she was never one to underestimate. His leader, the Chunin named Naruto, was sitting on a tree branch, reading a scroll. A female had come along, her eyes a dead giveaway of her being a Hyuga. Unlike her 2 teammates, Samui prepared herself as if she was going to face off against a strong opponent. I don't think I have to use my sword for this, Omoi. Karui grinned. I was hoping I could smash this kid's face in. Ever since that day he talked back to us. Omoi nodded his head once, agreeing. He didn't understand why Yugito arranged for this, but he never did mind some extra practice. Perhaps this was secretly a test given to them by Killer B, who was watching from somewhere. Something like, don't pick on the weak, since their opponent now was a genin. Oi, Karui yelled to Naruto. I think you'd better back him up. No, I will defeat the 3 of you by myself. Gaara's voice was as dead as they remembered it being. Fine, Karui grumbled, not liking Gaara's dead stare. Ready to get your ass kicked. Samui stayed back, a bit, knowing Karui would rush in, like always. Omoi would back her up. Come. Gaara kept his arms folded over one another. Karui rushed forward in impressive speed, flanked by Omoi. To their surprise, Gaara dissipated into sand and a sandstorm was raging around them. Genjutsu? Karui asked out loud. Well, then we're both in the same one. Omoi replied, grabbing his sword all of a sudden. Samui's not in here. Shit, there's no escape from this. The kunoichi commented. Suddenly from behind them, a huge wave of sand descended upon them. Crap, Omoi yelled, infusing his sword with electricity. Shasen. Karui quickly followed Omoi through the opening in the sand he had created, only to find themselves into a dome of sand, which closed as the opening that Omoi created before closed again. Hey, your technique is weak against lightning, sand user. Omoi grinned as he infused his sword with lightning again. Karui also grabbed her sword, doing the same as Omoi. And then the dome came crashing down on them, with the pressure of an avalanche. Samui, who was on the outside, had watched as her two teammates were surrounded by a tornado of sand and moments later, both of them unconscious on the ground. His abilities are of a high magnitude, I can't let myself be hit or trapped by them. She looked around, to realize Gaara was nowhere to be found. And then they came. 20 Gaaras came ascending from the ground, all sand clones, equipped with hardened sand spears, aimed at her. You have no chance of victory against me. Yugito's eyes were widened. They can't do anything, he's too overwhelming. She turned her head to Naruto. And he's even stronger. She looked at the proud Samui. But Samui is close to Junin level, you'd better not underestimate her. Gaara's eyes widened a bit as Samui suddenly vanished. Bunshin. But he wasn't worried, he wasn't really there, either, after all. His sand clones didn't have any target now, but were all prepared to spear anything around them. It seems the real one isn't here. Samui's voice slightly startled Gaara, who was hiding underground. Genjutsu. Clones won't succumb to illusions, after all, she found out. Gaara grinned, wondering how the sand clones would be dealt with, when all of a sudden, the ground rumbled. Specifically the area where he was hiding in. Chakra. A few inches above him, Samui was piercing the ground with her sword, sending lightning chakra down, to reach the hiding Gaara. That was when all the sand clones exploded into 100 spears, all directed at the attacking Samui. But the kunoichi easily pivoted around all the attacks, while her sword remained in the ground. As she was dodging Gaara's clones' attacks, she also performed a single seal. Raiden. Ochi Unagi. Gaara gritted his teeth as electricity raced through his body. She can activate her sword from a distance, to attack. The attack lacked power, though, so Gaara easily overcame it. The Shukaku holder erupted from out of the ground, still looking completely fresh, to see Samui a few feet in front of him, her sword back in her hands. His sand clones had all evaporated already. Interesting. He's unharmed. I sent quite some chakra through my sword. This is a genin. It's hard enough to attack him directly. The blonde Kumo ninja thought as she readied herself again. Gaara smiled and did a single hand seal. Suna Shigur. Yugito had already looked skywards to see a cloud of sand above Samui, which seemed to rain down upon said girl. Samui rushed towards Gaara and planned to slash her sword across Gaara's chest, only to see a shield of sand stop her attack. His sand rain attack follows me wherever I go, even towards himself. She realized. This shield of sand is protecting him either way. Jumping back and avoiding more droplets of sand, she quickly infused her sword with electricity again. This should penetrate that shield of his. Suddenly, the rain stopped and Gaara didn't have his arms folded over one another. You're the only one who seems to have gotten past my warming up. Your two other teammates were quite abysmal. Gaara got into a stance. I'll fight seriously now. Samui readied herself. Naruto, still on the tree branch, had put the book he was reading away. He didn't expect anyone to get this far against Gaara. This Samui was pretty good. But it was impossible for her to continue this now. She's pretty good. Yugito whipped her head back, surprised to find Naruto behind her. He's the only one who can sneak up on me. Just a split second before, he was still on that same tree branch, still reading that book Ika. So is he. I didn't expect him to so easily deal with the others. Samui is something else, though. Naruto shrugged. We'll see. On the battlefield, Samui eyed her opponent carefully. He's changed his stance. He's not going to stand still now. The blonde chose to rush forward, or, let her shadow rush forward, a quick bunchin. It was so quick, too quick, so it looked as if she herself was rushing forward. To her surprise, out of Gaara's stomach, came a humongous claw of sand with markings. It ripped through her bunchin and headed straight for her. Shaking herself out of her stupor, Samui quickly jumped over the claw of sand and threw a few explosive tags Gaara's way. But the real Gaara's wasn't there. Samui looked back to see Gaara materializing out of the claw of sand. As her explosive tags went off on the replicate Gaara, she used all her might to slice through another wave of sand headed for her. If it wasn't for the fact she infused her sword with lightning chakra, she would have been hit. Descending, Samui looked up to see Gaara float on a cloud of sand, while Gaara's previous attacks were all still in midair. She was surrounded by huge shapes of sand around her. The precious claw of sand was slowly falling to the ground. And then, everything changed. Her world turned completely dark. All of Gaara's previous attacks seemed to melt into one around her. Yugito's eyes widened at the massive dome Gaara had created. The dome he had created midair, a dome covered with weird blue markings. It's over, came Naruto's voice. She's in Gaara's world now. The walls she might lean against, the ground she stands on, the ceiling she sees, everything is his in there. He's a Jinchuriki. I knew of him, but I didn't think he would be this good at controlling the Biju's chakra. And I think you are one, as well, a Jinchuriki. Yugito pointedly looked at him. Naruto simply grinned at her. You too, right, I can sense a lot of chakra in you. Like, an amount only someone like a Jinchuriki can have. The blonde Junin nodded her head, before turning her attention to Gaara's dome technique, which was falling apart. Don't underestimate my student, though. She's a master of electricity. Samui dropped to the ground, unharmed. Gaara was still floating in the air, looking down at her, his eyes narrowed in respect. Not bad, Kumo Shinobi. But can you? Samui cut him off, holding up a hand as she was panting. I used too much chakra. To escape from that dome, she had released almost all of her chakra, infused with lightning, to create a hole. But that dome was special. She had to use a larger amount than she anticipated just to create a hole big enough for her to escape through. The Shukaku Jinchuriki nodded his hand and cancelled out every technique he had planned underground for her. He evaporated and appeared beside Naruto, who was now standing at Hinata's side again. Hinata, who was at complete awe of the battle that had just ended. Anyo, that was great, Gaara-kun. Hinata stammered. The soft voice came as a surprise to him, but he heard her clearly. He was unsure what to say to this strange girl. Thank you, Hyuga Hinata-san. Naruto grinned at the two, before he turned and watched Yugito attempting to wake up Karui and Omoi. I believe we won that little bet, didn't we? Yugito sighed at her two still unconscious subordinates, who refused to move an inch. Useless. She rose from her crouched position and stared at the smiling Naruto. Not really. You said my team wouldn't even scratch Gaara. I believe Samui did hit him with that lightning attack underground. Gaara looked sideways, a bit ashamed. I concur, she did. Naruto looked shocked at Gaara. Wow, really? He then shrugged. Blasted. Well, I guess no one wins, then. Because your team didn't defeat Gaara. The Nekomata Jinchuriki shook her head as she and Samui both picked up Omoi and Karui. It was a silly bet, anyway. Naruto snorted. Che, you obviously have never tasted ramen before. Whatever you say, Naruto. Yugito nodded her head to Samui, indicating they should be heading back to their temporary apartment. As they left, Naruto turned to Gaara and Hinata. So, Hinata, what you wanted to talk about? He was in a bad mood. Obviously, the meetings he had in Konoha didn't go too well. She realized their village wanted an alliance with Konoha, but even she knew things weren't all rainbows and sunshine between leaf and cloud. Darui and she, the two guards who were constantly by the Raikage's side, glanced back every now and then. Samui understood why. Apparently, Konoha made a bargain with the Raikage, and now the team that was watching them the whole time in Konoha was going to be going back with them to Kumo. Yugito was walking behind the Raikage, she and Darui. Omoi and Karui were walking left and right from her. Konoha's team was walking behind them, having small talk. The blonde Chunin also glanced back occasionally, just to check on them. She was a good shinobi, able to sense other nins quick and easy, but she didn't understand why she couldn't sense the kid she fought a few days ago, or their captain, the blonde that bested Yugito about a week ago. It actually irritated her. She was defeated, too. She rarely lost a spar. Only Killer Bee and Yugito would give her a run for her money, but they were massive powerhouses. This Gaara kid didn't look like much, except maybe a psychotic killer at times. But he was stronger than her, definitely. She wondered, were all the others in their team just as strong? She had intel on all of them. Sabaku no Kankuro, a talented Kugutsu user. As far as Kumo knew, he could only control 2 puppets so far. Sabaku no Tamari was a wind user, her big fan stating the obvious. But she was strong, probably stronger than her brother, Kankuro. Sabaku no Gaara was a Jinchuriki, they all knew. Kinato Dosu they actually knew nothing about, except for his name. He was a former sound nin, but other than that, skills, chakra affinity, they didn't know anything. And then their leader, Uzumaki Naruto. Samui regarded the other blonde from the corner of her eye. He's a definite wildcard. If his subordinate can defeat someone like me. Samui was perhaps a bit arrogant, but before that, she was honest. She was considered a prodigy in Kumo, then how strong as the captain? Hold up. She suddenly halted and Samui noticed that Yugito had also tensed up. The Raikage wasn't really in the mood for sightseeing. Hurry up, already, I'm cranky at the moment. We've got company, big company. Yugito let out and she agreed. This chakra presence is massive, and it's not even trying to hide itself. She continued, and it's coming this way. Who's stupid enough to attack a cage? A turn towards the Konoha team. Are these shinobi from Konoha? He glared at Naruto, who shook his head. No, I've already sent a few bunchen ahead, they're coming from the opposite direction. Naruto answered calmly. One of them has a Sharingan, the other looks like a shark. Uchiha Itachi and Hoshigaki Kisame. She whispered, in shock. He didn't ask Naruto how he found out. Those are 2 big names, boss. Orders, Uzumaki Taiko. Came Gaara's voice. Naruto assessed the situation in front of him as best as he could, before settling on the Raikage, who was busy yelling at all of his subordinates to deal with these 2 missing nin as quick as possible. He wanted to go home fast. We protect Raikage-sama, he laid out, with the best of our abilities. Samui looked startled as she heard that and the rest of the team gave much of the same reaction. Darui's lazy eye settled down on the Konoha group. You don't understand. They're after ni Yugito and Sabaku no Gaara. Yugito winced. She hadn't told the others yet that Naruto was also a Jinchuriki. They're here. She breathed out, as nervous as one could get. Oi, Itachi-san, is this our lucky day or what? A very tall man, who looked like he was half fish, let out as he hefted his sword on his right shoulder. I believe I spy, with my little eye, 3 little Jinchuriki. They had appeared in front of the Raikage, Darui and she. Naruto and the others stood behind the Raikage. 3. The Raikage repeated. Then I assume their captain is the other Jinchuriki. Samui, Omoi and Karui looked shocked as they turned to stare at Naruto, who simply shrugged. I do not want to kill you all, Uchiha Itachi started, his Sharingan eyes looking at all of them. But I will not hesitate to do so if you don't do as we say. A loud chuckle came from the front as the Raikage stared at Kisame and Itachi. Lucky, indeed, I'm having a bad day. Electricity surrounded the cage and he was ready to start fighting. She and even the usual lazy and laconic Darui looked completely shocked as their leader, suddenly fell to the ground, the chakra around him vanishing. He was unconscious, definitely out cold. Shit. Darui acted instantly, grabbing the cage and jumping back. She now stood alone in front of the 2 powerful criminals. What did you do? The shark of the 2 chuckled shortly. I didn't expect you to do that, Itachi-san. I foresaw complications if I hadn't. Itachi whispered, feeling a slight after effect from using the Tsukiyomi. Kisame bared his fangs at the group in front of him. Ha ha ha, your most powerful guy just got downed in a second. A huge amount of killer intent filled the air. How about you guys all? Itachi cut him off, also stopping the killer intent from rising further. Kisame, we're only here to take the Jinchuriki. The former mist shinobi snarled, his lust for a kill dying down just a tiny bit. Which one? He joked, but Itachi took him seriously. Our orders are, for only Uzumaki Naruto-kun. Itachi said, his eyes resting on the Konoha group. He knew what to do as soon as he heard that. Leave, Yugito-san. Take all of your shinobi with you and go back to Konoha. I'll hold them off. This was Akatsuki, the group that was after the Kyuubi inside him. It wasn't the time for jokes. These guys were the real deal. Not a chance. Gaara walked up next to Naruto, which made his eyes widen. I will not let them take you, Uzumaki Taiko, the redhead said with a bit of doubt in her voice. They'll have to go through me. They looked strange to Itachi, and he became even more suspicious when he saw Naruto's eyes that looked like toads. The missing nin didn't think it was likely that a child as young as Naruto would know Senjutsu, but just to be sure, he did the Shoreizu again. He looked into the future for a few minutes and saw nothing. Not possible. Itachi used every sense he had to look for any reinforcements that were coming, but there were none. In the distance, all he could pick out were the 3 shadow clones that Naruto had sent to Konoha to help. If his Shoreizu showed him darkness, that meant he would pass out in 5 to 7 minutes. He growled, this is not good enough. Tsukiyomi. Kisame turned his head to look at Itachi. Itachi, what are you? After that, both Naruto and Gaara passed out and fell to the ground. After that, Itachi had to hold his head up with his right hand right away to stop feeling dizzy. Since Naruto was out of it, his shadow clones never made it to Konoha. They are stronger than you think, Kisame. They had to be dealt with. Man, Kisame said as he looked at the last shinobi in front of him, who was screaming in fear. He casually said, I didn't know you could use the technique on 2 people at the same time. He liked how tense the room was. The shinobi who used to be Konoha was fine again. He turned back to the group in front of them and said, there's a lot you don't know about me, Kisame. When Naruto and Gaara fell, Dosu, Kenkuro, and Temari jumped in front of them right away. Yugito was now scared. Raikage was by far the strongest of them all, but he was dealt with in the same way. Naruto wasn't easy to get along with either, but she didn't know why. He was also blown out of the game, just like the Kumo leader. Darui told the Raikage as he leaned against a tree, I'm going to take a chance and say you've already used a lot of your chakra. Yugito, we are the strongest present. We're all Junin, we can deal with these 2. The Neko Jinchuriki wasn't sure about that, though. That Kisame person had more chakras than she did. Itachi told him, leave. Overestimating your own ability is something a genin would do. I expect none of that of Junin like yourself. But Kisame had another plan. Let me just rip all of them apart, Itachi. Itachi thought about his comrade for a moment before looking at the Kumo nin behind him and the 3 Konoha nin in front of him. Do what you want. The fight that was going to happen might make it easier for him to just grab Naruto. The area then turned into water all of a sudden. There was water everywhere. Kisame, who had just used Big Wave Explosion, was eager to cut his opponents up. Itachi was nowhere to be seen. The Kumo nin and Konoha were all swimming in his technique. They held their breath and knew they couldn't run away. Kisame gave a mean grin and was about to fuse with Samahata. That is, until something strange happened to his water dome, or rather, inside his water dome. There was a jump. Gamabunta, Kisame thought, clenching his teeth in anger. He let out a short, unsure laugh as he tried to shake off his anger at the summoning's sudden appearance in front of him. He spoke out and stared at the huge toad that was floating in front of him. Jiraiya-sama, I presume? I can't use my water dome now. I can breathe here and call out sharks all I want, but Gamabunta is too strong for any of my sharks. Jiraiya had already laid Gaara and Naruto down on the ground outside the dome. The rest of Naruto's team was close by. Kenkuro asked, how did you get here so fast? From afar, Itachi was also interested in that question as he watched Kisami's fight. He hadn't felt Jiraiya coming toward them at all, but he had felt him appear just now. Jiraiya threw out an angry, "I was summoned." Besides that, he was reading something good. Tamari kept asking, "Summoned?" as he looked at the Kumo nin still trying to get out and the giant toad in the water dome. Additionally, it looks like Jiraiya did nothing to help save them either. He did, however, slam the Konoha nin out of the water sphere. It might not be a good idea to slam Kumo nin. "I made a deal with Naruto," he said with a grimace as he checked Naruto's vital signs. "We can call each other with a scroll if we need to. A need like Akatsuki is, okay, I guess." He was still not sure about being taken from a great spot at the bathhouses. The man that looked like a shark landed on the floor next to Itachi after Kisami's water technique went off. He wasn't sure if the Uchiha was already there or had just shown up after him, but it didn't matter. You could tell Itachi was dry, though. Jiraiya's call put the two Akatsuki members in the middle of the other people. Darui was carrying the raikage on the Kumo nin when it landed close to the Konoha shinobi. The sword on Kisami's back was repositioned as he said, "Such a shame, I didn't expect you here, Jiraiya-sama." Toad Sage replied, "Yeah, that makes two of us." He then turned away from Gaara and Naruto and stared at Itachi and Kisame. "You realize you both have to flee now, right? I'm not really in the mood for a complicated battle. To give you an idea, he had to protect all of these newbies while fighting two strong shinobi." Itachi turned his back on everyone and said, "Kisame, he's right. With Jiraiya-sama's presence here, it's best to retreat." The former Mist Nin looked at Jiraiya with disdain because he knew the other person was too strong. "Quite correct, he is one I would rather not face." When it came to shinobi, strength was everything. One shinobi could beat another, but that second shinobi would lose to the third shinobi. It's all about the matches. Jiraiya was too strong for Itachi to beat. Jiraiya might be able to beat Orochimaru, but Orochimaru would probably still lose if he went all out. Jiraiya looked at the ninja who was still awake nearby as the two missing nin left. "Let's get them back to Konoha. They've been hit by the Tsukiyomi. Only one person I know can fix this." "I can't believe this, Raikage-sama was, just like that, what the hell happened?" While sitting outside of the hospital, Omoi was stunned, and Karui was sitting next to him. Jimiya went straight to the Hokage tower, leaving Samui, Yugito, Shi, and Darui behind. At the moment, Naruto, Gaara, and the Raikage were all in the hospital. Most likely, Naruto's team was inside. They were 2S level criminals, Omoi. "We didn't know anything about them, but they rushed us right away." Karui felt just as hopeless as Omoi and was depressed. "We were screwed even with Shi, Darui and Yugito." "You're kidding," Omoi said. "And those other Konoha nin couldn't do anything either. I've heard they need to get a legendary medic back to Konoha or something." "Hey, will he be alright?" The woman with red hair laughed out loud. "A guy like Raikage, are you serious? He's gonna be fine, you idiot." Omoi pouted a little and said, He clenched his fists tightly and said, "Karui, we need to get stronger. A lot stronger. I mean, a Genesis beat us both up. And then this feeling of being completely useless. I don't want it." She agreed, but Karui didn't say anything. "We will pay her." There was silence between them until Yugito spoke up. The third Hokage raised an eyebrow. It wasn't easy for them to get Tsunade to Konoha. It wouldn't be hard to find her, but getting her to come back to the Leaf. It might not be possible. "Tsunade is the gambler, right? She gambles in Kumo," she said with a slight frown. "Alongside me, sometimes. She always loses and I know of her great debts. This is important. It's about Raikage-sama. Kumo will pay her debts if she can heal our Raikage." Darui shook his head, and she put his head on the joints of his right hand. "While everything you say is most likely." He paused for a moment. He didn't want to say it out loud, but Yugito's idea might be the only one that will work. "True, and your way of persuasion might work. I think we should send a Konoha squad after her and persuade her, normally first. If that happens, Konoha will also help." He was interested in how much she owed now because it was hard to believe 3 years ago. Jiraiya said, I'll go. I know how to find her. Naruto's squad had come back from a failed mission, and Naruto and another member of his squad were in the hospital. Sasuke had heard. He and Sakura were now on their way to the hospital. Kakashi was still not there yet. They got back from their own mission yesterday and were going to train today, but this had to come first. They thought Sai had gone home. The well-known copy ninja looked like he was reading, but his mind was on something else. It was crazy to think that Uchiha Itachi and Hoshigaki Kisame would attack them. It would be bad for Sasuke to find out. As soon as they walked into the waiting room, they saw two Kumo shinobi who looked very upset also waiting there. Kakashi cocked his head and chose to join them. He might even ask them what happened outside. You guys go on ahead, I'll wait here for a bit. His two students looked at each other with doubt, then shrugged and walked over to where Naruto was. Naruto's two old teammates weren't shocked when they saw more people in the room. Temari was sitting next to Gaara's bed, which was next to Naruto's. Kankuro and Dosu were leaning against the wall. The two people in the hospital seemed to be breathing normally. Sakura started out hesitantly with, "Ah." Before she let herself into the room and went to Naruto's bed, she quickly said, "Excuse me." Sasuke didn't say anything to the other people, but he did follow Sakura. Sakura couldn't help but frown as she looked at his weak body. She always thought Naruto was so active and strong. It hurt her a lot to see him like this. "Sasuke-kun." The Uchiha moved out of the corner of her eye, and she asked, "What happened?" Kankuro gave the Uchiha that was asking a question a bored look. "We were attacked by two nuke nin, Uchiha Itachi and Hoshigaki Kisame." In the waiting room, Kakashi had just heard a full story from Karui and Omoi. He was whistling to himself. He sighed and put his book down because he could hear noise in the room where Naruto should have been. "Tell me more. Where is he now? What did he say?" When Kakashi saw Sasuke grab Kankuro by his suit, he sighed. "Do puppeteers dress like that? Sasuke, let him go." Everyone was shocked when they saw the copy nin standing there because they hadn't even felt him come in. The Avenger let go of Kankuro and stomped toward Kakashi in a mad mood. "Kakashi, it was Itachi. Do you know anything about this? You knew about this, didn't you? Calm down, Sasuke." He wouldn't calm down at all, not even a little. When Kakashi saw that Sasuke wouldn't back down, he said, "He's nowhere close. He's the one who did this to Naruto and Gaara, and also the Raikage." There was silence in the room as Sasuke clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. The sounds of muscles stretching and bones breaking filled it. He beat a cage and made two groups, one of which had some Junin in it, run back to Konoha. "Itachi, how strong are you really?" Sometime after a few days. He liked how the water made his feet feel cool. In between trips, he always looked for some kind of lake. They hadn't stopped to eat, drink, or even sleep for 2 days. It was very important to him and the Kumo nin that they find Tsunade as soon as possible. "Jiraiya-sama." The hermit toad looked over his shoulder and saw Samui coming up behind him. "Yugito wanted me to let you know we're ready to move again." The old man shook his head. They said, "Let's wait 10 minutes longer before we leave. My feet feel great right now." The real reason was that he was ready to move again, but the others weren't. It's great that they wanted to save their master so badly, but it's not good to forget about yourself. He was traveling with Samui, Yugito, and, to his surprise, Kakashi at the moment. Samui saw Jiraiya throw his feet into the lake and shrugged. He then chose to give it a try. "Jiraiya-sama, do you think Tsunade-sama will come with us? For money? I don't know. Paying off her debts might do the trick, since it'll mean she'll be allowed to gamble everywhere again." Daikamedachi. As Kankuro watched Temari's wind blast finally hit the boulder, it made a noise. "You're getting better." His big sister yelled at the big rock in front of her, "Not good enough. We need to make sure they can rely on us." "What are you doing lazing about, Kankuro?" The puppeteer was propped up against a tree at that very moment. "Hey, do you think I'm taking a break?" Temari asked her brother as she watched him turn his head to look behind him, behind the tree he was sitting on. She stared so hard that she couldn't keep her mouth shut. The battle between the three puppets was taking place quite a distance away. Be blindly. Kankuro sighed as his puppet stopped moving and said, yeah. It's really hard. 3 puppets is my limit, and these are still wooden. I'm making metal ones at the moment, more durable, you know. But controlling those requires even greater strength. But momentum plays a huge part in it, thankfully. The blonde gave him a pat on the head and said, great job, little brother. You're so lazy. Want to see if they can withstand the Daikamedachi. Kankuro made fun of Temari's smile. You do know that wind chakra is the most powerful element, right? Keep that crazy fan of yours away from my puppets. I don't like repeating myself, Temari. His sister asked that question way too often for his liking. You're getting boring, Temari said as she pointed her fan at the rock again and let out another strong gust. Kankuro deadpanned as he saw the boulder finally break in half. Thank the heavens for that. They didn't feel like telling each other how worried they were about Gaara and Naruto. Both of them got it. He was asked to meet up with a new possible teammate by the 3rd Hokage. He was put in charge by Naruto as 3rd in command, after himself and Gaara. That made him feel pretty good, since both Naruto and Gaara were crazy powerful. Kinyuta Dosu. He wasn't a slouch either. He was getting better at controlling sound, and he could finally, control the things that were under his bandages. Orochimaru would be sad that he didn't have him as a sound shinobi anymore. I believe you are somewhat familiar with Touya. In the Hokage's office, Dosu was brave enough to look at the young woman sitting in the other chair. He didn't like the glare he was getting, but he was used to it because all sound nin got that kind of glare. I know of her, though I cannot recall having traded words with one another. He also didn't like the red-haired girl's sudden frown, he decided. I see, for the next few weeks, Touya will be joining your team on missions within the village. Should your team receive outside missions, she won't be part of the team. Understood. I want you to show her around the village. She'll be living in the same apartment complex you are residing, the apartment next to yours is hers. I'm counting on you, Dosu-san. He looked at Touya with one eye and said, as you wish, Hokage-sama. Follow me, then. The fire leader saw them both leave and chose to keep watching through his viewing orb. There is no doubt that Dosu will always be loyal to Naruto, but Touya has only shown that she is not a mindless slave to Orochimaru. It needs more time to watch. The first thing Touya asked Dosu was, so you've also worked for Orochimaru? I've never seen you before. I was a genin, and you were one of the 5, Dosu began. I wonder how they've come to trust you like this, as you were one of Orochimaru's more trusted guards. Touya gave him a smile. At his lack of response, she rolled her eyes and said, hey, you talk funny, mummy. They've done a shitload of interrogation techniques on me. And I may have been one of the 5, that was only because I survived one the more riskier of Orochimaru's cursed seals. I was bound to that snake and knew I could do nothing to fight it. The cursed seal would have hurt me even more had I resisted. As he led the way to the apartment building, Dosu didn't look back. I'll assume you possess no other clothes than what you're wearing now. You assume wrong, mummy. Being called that was making Dosu very angry. My name is Kinyuta Dosu. It'd be wise to refrain to me as such, Touya. Touya moved the cap on top of her head a little. Whatever. That Hokage told me my apartment already had a bunch of stuff for me, including several sets of clothes. So what kind of team do we have? Who's the boss? Dosu went into the building where he lived. Our team is one of genin. Our leader is Chunin, though I'm fairly sure he's ranked above. Chunin? Touya asked. Our leader is a fucking Chunin. So I can kick his ass, huh? That's a pretty stupid assumption, Dosu said. Our leader single-handedly and very easily killed Kagaya Kimimaro and made Yukushi Kabuto retreat. I saw it happen in front of me. Oh, that stopped Touya in his tracks. He looked at the shocked girl and smiled. He also realized that Touya and Temari, who was the tallest person on the team, were probably the same height. However, everyone was slowly catching up to Temari. Wait, this Chunin faced both Kimimaro and Kabuto and was actually winning. Fuck you, I ain't retarded, mummy. No way am I falling for such a far-fetched story. He shrugged, and Dosu went on. Actually, he faced Kimimaro while he was in his highest cursed seal state, on his own and defeated him soundly. In fact, Taiko hadn't even received a single scratch. Kabuto merely fled after seeing the result of that fight. Touya laughed. No shit. Dosu gained a smile. Our captain is also the one that disrupted your Shishi engine. It was hard to get the redhead to believe it at first, but she was slowly starting to do so. I suppose I should thank him for that one. If what you say is actually true, it takes a crapload of chakra to perform Shishi engine. Really, Taiko can do it on his own, though. Quote comma dot. You're just full of shit, aren't you? TIMESKIP, 2.5 weeks. This the kid. Tsunade was shocked to find herself back in Konoha. When Jiraiya and his strange group of Konoha and Kumo shinobi found her in Waterfall, she was a little shocked by all the news he had told her. Her old teammate Orochimaru was killed when he tried to kill Konoha but failed. Then, about a week later, a jerk named Uchiha Itachi beat a Kage and 2 Jinchuriki in one fight. The kid had to be really good, too, because the Raikage she knew wasn't easy to beat. Jiraiya had told her about Naruto Uzumaki, Kushina, and Minato's child. This is the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. It looks like he was a real talent. The famous doctor said in a soft voice, he looks fine, I guess, as she began to work on him. Jiraiya, Hiruzen, and Kakashi were the only ones there when Tsunade worked on Naruto and Gaara. I think they'll wake up in a few hours, she said when she was done. The Raikage awoke immediately, but that's because the stronger the shinobi, the faster he or she will. UHNN. Someone groaned and cut her off. She quickly turned away from the Hokage and the others to see both Jinchuriki wake up. She was shocked for a short time before she made up her mind. I guess Jinchuriki are an exception as well. Gaara didn't know why he was lying in a hospital bed, so he just looked around the room. Naruto finally managed to say, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto and Gaara, you're fine. Go to sleep, and we'll tell you more tomorrow, Kakashi told them with a smile. It's good to see you two awake again. So, they chose to just do it. As the third watched, the 2 Jinchuriki fell asleep soundly in their hospital beds. It was the same with the Raikage. He was still in a hospital bed, but he was awake and comforting his own shinobi. Hawks had already been sent to Kumo to let the village's leaders know that the leader was healthy. Hiruzen looked at Naruto-kun's still body and thought, you've grown very strong. Whether I sent an Anbu squad or a Junin squad to go with the Raikage and his group, it wouldn't have made a difference. Uchiha Itachi is very strong. The old man had to sign a lot of papers because Kumo's council was very upset that their leader was in the hospital. He also had to meet with Jiraiya, Naruto's team, and the Kumo nin to talk about what happened. It had been used on Gaara, Naruto, and the Lightning Leader. He already knew what the Raikage had been through. 62 hours of harm. What did the 2 Jinchuriki who came before him face in that ultimate form of Genjutsu? Oh, old man. Hiruzen's eyes slowly moved to Naruto as he woke up. That's pretty impressive. An hour and a half after the Raikage woke up. That's pretty impressive, he said as he sat down and turned his chair towards Naruto. Good afternoon, Naruto-kun. I assume you had a good night's rest. He flexed his arms and said, Ho. More than just good, I feel great. He looked at the fire leader with a serious face. What happened to us, old man? I will be asking you the same question. Naruto woke up the next morning to find Temari, Kenkuro, and Dosu in the room he was in. He woke up before Gaara, who had probably been sleeping in since he was able to sleep. So, care to fill me in what happened after I got knocked down? Everyone had, of course, said how happy they were to see them all okay that morning. Kenkuro sat down on a small stool between Naruto and Gaara's beds and said, You called on Jiraiya. He chased them away. On one side of Naruto's bed, Temari was sitting down, and on the other side, Dosu was leaning against the wall. That guy doesn't look it at all, but with the way those two retreated, I'll assume he's as strong as they come. Naruto looked at Kenkuro and said, Jiraiya is strong. I was just able to summon him too, or rather, my Kage Bunshin was. When Itachi used that genjutsu on me, my Bunshin all dispelled one by one. My last one made the hand seals and poured the chakra on the summoning scroll just in time. I still don't get how you can call Jiraiya, Taiko, Temari asked, eager to know more. It's kind of a last resort. Those two Nukenin are part of an organization who are after the Biju sealed in us. I'm strong and I've pushed Gaara to catch up to me. But we're not invincible. We can always land in some kind of sticky situation. In that case, I can summon Jiraiya. It's a blood summoning scroll. He can summon me, I can summon him. Wherever we are. He added, that's good to know. Should we receive a high-ranked mission in where we are entrapped by any kind of means, we'll always have something to fall back on. Temari let out a snort that said, Che. That's only if Taiko's around, Dosu. The ex-Oto Nin showed Temari the Hiraishin Kunai that Naruto had given them all and said, ah, but then. We also have these. The blonde woman had to smile when she heard that. Yeah, you're right, fine. A member of the group said, I like it. It'll make me perform more confidently on missions. Not that I need more confidence. The group turned around to hear Gaara waking up. You're making too much noise. As Temari hugged him, the redhead couldn't help but smile. Kankuro laughed, and you could hear the relief in his voice. Good to have you back in the land of the living, little brother. After 2 days, Naruto's team was fully awake and moving around. The blonde was interested in how other people were doing. Most of all, his old team. They didn't have time to come visit in the hospital this week because they had a lot of C-rank missions. That was a terrible thing. They were having fun in the apartment where the Suna trio was living at the time. It was right next door to Naruto. Naruto told the Hokage everything he knew about what happened with Kisame and Itachi. He tells everyone on purpose what Itachi did to him during the Tsukiyomi. He learned later that Gaara had been going through the same thing. An exchange with Itachi. For 48 hours. It seems that the Tsukiyomi put too much stress on the brain of the receiver, so the victim would fall asleep whether it was harmful or not. What we talked about was also very interesting. During the Tsukiyomi, he learned a lot about Konoha's past. Taiko, maybe now is a good time to welcome our new member. Dosu's voice pulled him out of his thoughts. Gaara was talking with his siblings when they said, she lives next door. She's my neighbor. A single nod was given to Naruto when he asked, Touya, right? What do you think of her, Dosu? It's hard to say, she's a difficult person who likes to curse. It is part of her nature. I can't easily see through her, but I believe she's at least an honest person. You'll see when you meet with her. Then we'll meet tomorrow, as scheduled. Hokage-sama also told me our mission is still on and our new departure date is in 3 days. Let's prepare ourselves a bit better than last time, huh? It said, Team 7 is back from 2 C-ranked missions. Hitaki Kakashi bowed to his leader. Mission success. This time, Hiruzen didn't have a lot of work to do, so he was able to smoke his pipe without any problems. Good to see you back in Konoha. I assume there was not too much trouble. Everyone on Team 7 shook their heads. Aside from a few small injuries here and there, everything is fine, Kakashi said with a shrug. Okay. Then you and your team should rest for 2 days and get back to me in 4 days, Kakashi. Kakashi knew that this meant the 3rd day was for teamwork in the mission reports of the 2 new C ranks. Dismissed. The pink head of the team quickly asked Kakashi, Anyo, Hokage-sama. Do you have any news on Naruto? Kakashi had already turned away. But the Junin was also interested, so it turned around again. Ah yes, about that, I'm sure you'll be relieved to learn of his release from the hospital 3 days ago. I, however, have a request. He has a team meeting today which could very well be lasting until evening. Perhaps you'd be able to meet with him tonight, or tomorrow. The third noticed that Sakura's smile made people happy, so he smiled back. Kakashi and, in a more reserved way, even Sasuke seemed happy about this news. Even though Sasuke was likely happy for a different reason. So he could ask Naruto about Itachi. Hi, Hokage-sama. Sakura smiled as she bowed and left the office. Sasuke and Sai went after her, but Kakashi stayed behind for a while. He's alright, then. The shinobi professor nodded his head. Every shinobi needs to go through defeat to become stronger. I think Naruto has just gotten a lot stronger, Kakashi. Naruto was holding 2 big bags in his hands as he made his way up the stairs on the side of the outside wall to his apartment. Behind him, 2 shadow clones were also carrying 2 big bags each. Good morning, Taiko. The three Narutos looked to the balcony next to his to see Temari hanging the laundry. Up early, huh? Yeah, ran out of supplies, I was really hungry yesterday. Naruto wanted to scratch the back of his head, but he was unable to do so because of the bags. Let me guess. The female blonde deadpanned as she hung one of Kenkuro's suits. All of it is ramen. The Jinchuriki opened his mouth to quickly protest. No, I have one bag of. He trailed off as he looked to his shadow clones. Damn it. Yeah, all of what you see right now is ramen, he sulked a bit. Where's NR.3? He bellowed at his cage bunshin. Following that question, a third shadow clone made his way up the outside stairs. Here I am, Yanag. He also was carrying 2 big bags of grocery shopping. The real Naruto shook his head. One of his bags has some milk in it. He quickly exclaimed to Temari. Yeah, 1 carton of milk and the rest of the bag is still ramen. Temari smirked at her fellow blonde. The other snorted. Of course, you mustn't ever run out of ramen. Listen to the wise man. His 3 shadow clones chorused. Temari shook her head at the display on Naruto's balcony. And to think this guy knocked down Baki in 1 second, she muttered as she finished the laundry. Next time Kenkuro's doing this crap job. She muttered after that. Yo, tell the others I'll be a bit later at our training field. I've got someone to meet before that. Naruto yelled to Temari while his cage bunshin were already entering his apartment. Won't that be making a bad impression on our newest member, Taiko? Temari frowned at him. Nah, I don't think less of Kakashi-sensei. Man, I hope she shows up today. She did yesterday and the day before that, so. She must really love it. Naruto was sitting on the edge of a building with a view of Konoha's cooler side. He wasn't by himself. In order to pass the time until Tsunade and Shizune arrived, he made 2 of his shadow clones go with him. After all, he would get bored by himself. It looked like Tsunade and her assistant wouldn't be staying in Konoha for long. Instead, they were going to gamble here for a few days since she didn't owe anyone any money. One of the clones spoke up and asked, You know, we should have more blood summonings with us, don't you think? The other clone asked, Che, who do you want to call, Kiba? The first clone growled, Are you crazy? Akamaru would be a better choice. Maybe we should sign a blood scroll with the old man. The real Naruto was just looking down at the streets below while the 2 clones talked. Haha, yeah, and then summon him straight into the bathhouses. Holy crap, that would be the prank of a lifetime. But I think the old man wouldn't sign it, he's too important to be summoned away from Konoha all of a sudden. I mean, look at Jiraiya, he's never really busy. How about Kakashi-sensei? Nah, he's watching over Sakura-chan and the bastard during missions. We can't just drag him away from that. They both began to think about it. Naruto put his finger to his chin. How about Tsunade or that assistant of hers? They're not working for Konoha, so they're free, and they're strong, too. He could see the 2 of them walking away. Stay here, you 2, I'm gonna meet with her. He took a big jump and landed right in front of Tsunade and Shizune. The second one jumped a little when he landed quickly. Naruto bowed to them in a proper way. Tsunade-sama, Shizune-san. I thank you for your care. The blonde in front of Tsunade looked at her without any emotion. Oh, it's the brat we helped the other day. You're welcome. Next time don't go fighting S-rank Nukenin, kid. The blonde smiled at her and raised his head. Can't make promises about that one, since they're kinda after me. Of course, Tsunade learned about Akatsuki since she just moved to Konoha. A group that is trying to find all the Jinchuriki. It didn't really bother her, though. Then you should run away next time. You know the odds of surviving against someone like Uchiha Itachi, for a kid like you, right? Hey, you're talking to me about odds, lady. Naruto laughed a little. He put out his hand and said, My name is Uzumaki Naruto. Tsunade and Shizune shook his hand after a second or 3. I'll take it you have something to say, or ask us. Naruto looked at the 2 women in front of him with a slight tilt of his head and said, A request. It looks like he will value these 2 people a lot in the future. At the moment, he couldn't see how. Here. Tsunade looked at Naruto's right hand and saw 3 pills that looked a lot alike. What's that? Naruto held up the pills and thought, a special pill. He wanted to use them right away. They were made in the future, during a big war, by Haruno Sakura, who used to be on his team. Jinchuriki was the only one who could use it. But that didn't mean it couldn't help regular shinobi. Special? Tsunade asked again. What's it do? What was going on around Naruto? Take one and see if you can find out. I have more of these, but I can't tell you what they do in the middle of these streets. I have a mission in 2 days, so I'll be gone for a week or so. I've heard you'll be leaving Konoha too. He continued after Tsunade nodded. Shizune didn't say much and just stared at the strange blonde. The truth is, the effects of the pill require a certain medic jutsu that only you have. To be honest, it still needed to be worked on. Well, if you're curious, you can find me in Konoha. I'll gladly tell you more. Hey, you're kind of mysterious, aren't you? But she was interested. As she took one of the pills, she couldn't help but notice Naruto's smile. I don't really sense any ill intent from you, boy. Although you do remind me of a fox. He laughed and said, I guess it comes with the title, EY. After that, he bowed again and closed his eyes. Thank you, Tsunade-sama. I hope we will see each other again. As the granddaughter of the first Hokage walked by Naruto, she said, maybe we will. It was nice to meet you, Naruto-kun. He looked at Shizune when he opened his eyes. Yeah, it was very nice to meet you too, Shizune-san. Perhaps we'll have a more elaborate conversation next time. They will surely have. He slowly made his way to where his team usually trained after meeting Tsunade and Shizune. He liked those two. It wasn't hard to read either Tsunade or Shizune. They were very honest and didn't hide many things. He liked those kinds of people. He crept into a tree without being seen. He had already sent some Fuinbunshin ahead to see what his team was doing. Touya and Gaara were talking to each other. There was talk between Temari and Kankuro. He thought the talk was about laundry duty, if he heard it right. This was his group. Sabaku no Gaara, who was second in command, had some control over his Biju, and Naruto was sure that Gaara was now strong enough to fight Junin-level shinobi. Sabaku no Temari was getting good at her kuchiyos, which are weasels. She has only been able to call up a medium-sized weasel so far. But that one, Kamatari, was very good at using wind chakra. As Sabaku no Kankuro himself had said, he was quickly becoming an expert in Kugutsu. When they first met, Naruto thought he was already very good at what he did. Kinato Dosu could now hurt you with your own sounds. Anything that was making sound around him could be changed to sound like something else. Naruto thought it was a genjutsu the first time he tried it on him, but it was real. And this new girl named Touya, an expert in genjutsu. Not long ago, Azuki Yugo helped him with his genjutsu, but he was still very careful with that dangerous art. His shinobi outfit did warn him about genjutsu a lot of the time, and if things went badly, his stronger connection with his Biju could wake him up, but genjutsu is just too sneaky. As was shown with Itachi, it could only take a second. Where was the Kyuubi during the Tsukiyomi to wake him up? It looks like Tsukiyomi is one of those genjutsu that is just way too strong. He should talk to Kyuubi about it, if that demons wants to. Perhaps you wish to try and survive against my newest jutsu, then. Bring it, you tiny brat. Gaara and Touya were about to start a sparring match when Naruto quickly popped up behind him. The blonde also noticed that Touya was a bit taller than she was. Gaara was not too much taller than him. Now, I think it's best if we don't fight each other until I say so. Who are you? The captain? Touya asked, giving the blonde a few dirty looks. He said, yeah, actually. Naruto was still getting used to being called captain. His hand went out and said, name's Uzumaki Naruto. Just for a split second, Touya looked at Naruto's hand, but then he ignored it. Touya, I already met the others of our team. I want to know, actually, if you're fit to be our leader, since you're a chunin and all. Hehehe. The laugh was fake, and everyone knew it right away. You know, Touya, right? I'm not very friendly against people who try to destroy my home. I don't know why the old man saw it fit to make you a Konoha shinobi, but you're still gonna have to prove to me whether I can trust you. He then became cold. You do well to behave. In shock, Touya blinked and stumbled backwards. She had no idea that this happy-go-lucky guy would have such a strong killing intent. She had to say it. She now thought this guy might have killed Kimimaro. What? She asked, clenching her fists as she tried to get the intent to leave her. She did pretty well. That's pretty cool. For a chunin, she spat. To be more precise, she managed to spat out. Naruto knew the truth about everything. He laughed at her confidence, her pause, and her pride. He laughed out loud. Touya, I think we're going to have a lot of fun. Naruto said that to Touya from behind her, with his back to her. This made her eyes widen. She was also staring at him right in front of her. Damn, this guy's fast. Naruto's other followers looked at the blonde and said, are you kidding me? So you're saying that guy from Sai is on your genin team? Naruto asked and frowned as he walked next to Kakashi toward Kakashi's training grounds. Why? The copy nin said, I'm not sure. His posing as a genin is surely ordered, but I fail to see why. Perhaps Hokage-sama wants to protect Sasuke in the next Chunin exams. His next question was, so is he any good? Kakashi offered, well, he's definitely a few notches above Sasuke's level. You want to spar with the kid? He could hear his students far away. It was a nod from Naruto when he told him to use Shunshin to appear behind Sakura. She was playing with two kunai and sharpening them by rubbing them against each other. When she first became a genin, the girl had changed a lot. She thought she was a real pain for the rest of the team. She knew she wasn't as good as the rest of the team when she checked herself against them. At first, no one could beat Sasuke, but Naruto soon surpassed him by a large margin. She also didn't move, she just stood there. But no longer. Yet, neither she nor Sasuke had been able to beat the new guy, Sai. But she would get strong enough to beat the tough boy. Of course, Sasuke was also getting stronger and faster very quickly. Every once in a week, Kakashi taught them something new, like jutsu or important facts about other countries. This week, she learned the Kaden, Ensho no Jutsu. It was a lot like the Hausenka, but the Ensho had smaller fireballs and a lot more of them. This move was actually a defense. Sakura was surrounded by a shower of fire that hit everything but herself. She didn't bother to remember the names of the Raiden Jutsu that Sasuke had learned, and Sai hadn't learned anything new yet either. It was odd that Kakashi didn't talk to the pale boy very often. Sai was even paler than Sasuke. That means super pale, as Tazuna would say. When someone touched her shoulder from behind, Sakura turned her body around. Maybe Kakashi would do that, but he hadn't done it yet. No one else on her team would. That's something Sai and Sasuke would never do. Who then? And Naruto. Naruto copied Kakashi's carefree greeting, yo. Kakashi had to help a lady carry her groceries up a few stairs in my apartment building. I saw this and helped out. That's why he is so late and that's why I joined him. He almost hit her nose with her pink-haired finger as she said, liar. The blonde scratched her head and said, hey, this is actually pretty entertaining. I can see now why you do this, Kakashi-sensei. The copy nin standing in front of Team 7 hadn't caught their attention yet. It's not funny, Naruto. But, why are you here? Naruto told them the truth. Oh, today is my last day off before I go on another mission outside of Konoha. We haven't seen each other in a while, right? He didn't look at Sasuke and Sai, who didn't seem to be doing much. Naruto's going to join our training session today. It's a really easy one, too. The three of you, go up against me and Naruto. 3 genin versus a junin and a chunin. Think you can handle that? Sasuke got up from where he was sitting on Kakashi's training ground, against one of the 3 poles. Well, Naruto, let's see how far you've come. He looked at the blonde with a sharp Sharingan gaze. As you wish, Sasuke. Naruto laughed and then disappeared, leaving Kakashi behind. With a tight grip on her kunai, Sakura said, oh. So we've already started. What do we do? Sai's voice was flat as he unfolded a scroll that he found himself holding out of the blue. I cannot sense either of them. It was a soft voice that said, Ninpu, Choju Giga. From the scroll, 50 little ink mice ran out and spread out across the training course. As Sai began to wait, he didn't say anything. They didn't answer Sakura's question, will those find them? Before she looked at Sasuke, she gave Sai a mean look. My Sharingan can't see any active chakra sources around us, except for those little creatures Sai just sent out. They're hiding their chakra well. Sasuke moved his neck to the left. This is just a spar, it's not a test of teamwork. I'm going to find that blonde idiot. Sasuke jumped away, leaving Sakura and Sai alone in the clearing. When I was by myself with Sai, I was by myself. The boy didn't talk much. So, you're supposed to be good, right? A voice from Sakura's old teammate scared her a little, and she saw Naruto slam his fist into Sai's face, only to see Sai turn into a huge cloud of ink, ready to trap Naruto. Naruto, on the other hand, wasn't there anymore. Sai dug himself out of the ground not far from where his ink clone had just been spread out. He turned off his Choju Giga of mice and focused on the blonde shinobi in front of him. No words, he said. He didn't think Sakura would help him, but she was standing to his right. The boy with black hair said, Uzumaki Naruto. Sai rushed toward him and said, I will now test your skill. Naruto asked Sakura, could you not help him? I want to see how good he is. Sakura easily avoided Sai's taijutsu and jumped and punched and kicked back, but they were either blocked or dodged. Not too bad, Sai. So far, Sai hadn't touched him, so he was shocked when they started to fight seriously. He hadn't done that yet against his teammates. He had been fighting coldly until he took a hard punch from the left and then the right, which threw him to the ground. He got up without saying a word and ran at the blonde again. This time, he was hit from above with a kick that sent him to the ground. He quickly got back up and jumped backwards. From now on, he was going to stay away from taijutsu. Faster than me, Sai thought to himself. After he thought he was far enough away to be safe, Naruto pulled his legs out from under him and threw him a few meters into the air. Fight me seriously, Sai. While Sai was safely on the ground, the blonde didn't try to attack again. Sakura wasn't willing to let her jaw hang down. She found out that Sai was faster than both her and Sasuke. She had already thought that Sai might even be faster than Naruto. She was terribly wrong. Sai's voice stayed calm as he threw 5 ink tigers at Naruto. Ninpu, Choju Giga, all of them were killed, though, by an invisible force around Naruto. He just smiled at the ink spots on the ground around him. The ink stains on the ground turned back into tigers and charged at Naruto again, but they were quickly wiped away. This caught him off guard. Pretty ferocious creations you have there, Sai. Sai's eyes were still blank, just like they were at the start of the spar. Naruto saw that the boy could not be read at all. It was Naruto's turn to say something offensive. He said, Fuden, Senkantaso. Chakra could be seen around his hands. I hope someone knows some medic jutsu, you'd best be dodging now. Naruto slashed his arm in the air around Sai, sending a vicious slice of wind chakra his way. Sai quickly jumped out of the way. Around 5 trees were just blown to pieces behind where Sai had been standing, which made Sakura's eyes widen. That will definitely get Sasuke's attention and bring him back here. At the same time, Naruto kept cutting Sai with his hands, but she kept dodging them. People didn't bother with the ink tigers that kept getting back together. He is safe because he has wind chakra, Sai thought as he dodged another wind attack. He was thinking, I can't take one of his attacks, they'll do too much damage. But just then, Naruto jumped behind him, kicked Shunshin hard in the side, and Sai crashed into a tree that Naruto's attacks missed. Naruto looked at Sai with narrowed eyes when he woke up again. Is he serious? He's pretty good, he can keep up with me in some ways. As the second passed, Sasuke landed in front of Sai, who was holding his side as he tried to get better. Get out of here, he told the hurt boy behind him. He's already beat Sai. He did not look behind him, but he was sure that Sai was not feeling well. Naruto shook his hands together. Let's do this then, Sasuke. Someone was standing on Sasuke's shoulders before he could even rush at him. Kakashi had one foot on Sasuke's left shoulder and the other on the other. The Uchiha was furious as he backflipped and aimed to kick Kakashi away. Kakashi was glad to see that Sasuke was angry enough to leave Naruto alone. I'd like to see how Sakura does against Naruto. She tensed her muscles and said, my turn, huh, as she got ready to charge Naruto. Jinchuriki looked at the pinkhead in front of him. She has changed too. Her hair is really long now, he said. He saw that her ponytail was just below her shoulder blades. And Sakura had a thick ponytail while Yamanaka Ino had a thin one. The bangs went over her ears and down to her breasts. They also crossed over her eyes in some places. But it wasn't the same as Hinata's because Hyuga's was more rectangular, he thought. She was still wearing the same clothes, and he saw that she was still carrying the gloves he had given her. The gloves had seals engraved into them that activated a pulse of wind chakra to make her fire techniques stronger. She also wore black boots that were very high. Besides that, her outfit was still the same. Here goes, Sakura, don't hold back even slightly. Sakura grinned and slammed her right fist into the ground, saying, oh, I won't. Naruto thought rocks would shoot out of the ground, not Sakura ripping a piece of the ground out. It was ground he was on. He told her, niece. While Naruto was standing there, Sakura was moving a big rock and sand out of the way. With one hand. You've gotten better, Sakura. But what's the use of this? As soon as that happened, holes appeared all around Naruto and even under him, and small explosions of fire shot up, making it impossible for Naruto to get away. It looked like Sakura had already used the Hausenka no Jutsu on the rock that Naruto was standing on. Hausenka, which is run by wind chakra. But Naruto disappeared from the rock before anything could hit him. He then reappeared a few meters behind Sakura, his hands sealed. Here, Sakura, Fuden, Haiso no Jutsu. When Naruto whipped both hands up into the air, the rock Sakura was holding fell to the ground. With a loud yelp, Sakura was thrown into the air, high into the air. Very high. She was shrieking like a child while Naruto watched from the ground and smiled at her broken body. Hee, didn't know you could fly, Sakura. Naruto. Kaden. Hausenka no Jutsu. Naruto looked up and saw small fireballs coming at him, but he just used the Kyuka seal on his outfit to protect himself. Naruto smiled and did a few quick hand seals as Sakura quickly came back down to the floor. Fuden. Ku Kimakura. The girl with pink hair was completely shocked when air pressure from the ground slowed her fall by a lot. She got back up right away, like she hadn't just fallen down a mile. You could have died there, Sakura. You'd better be prepared next time you go flying, huh? Naruto. She yelled, angry, and ready to choke the blonde as she charged forward. Naruto just avoided all of her violent moves and jumped around her while laughing. A few seconds later, she was out of breath. To lift Naruto off the ground, she used 2 Hausenka and a lot of chakra. This made her very tired. She hadn't even touched Naruto. Naruto said to Sakura, you've gotten a lot better. He turned his back on her to see Sai getting ready to go again. So, why aren't you wearing your Chunin uniform, Naruto? The copycat got a shrug in return. He said dryly as he sat down with Team 7. Whose clothes were a lot more colorful than his black and gray ones. I like my clothes. Even though they are a bit gloomy. Sakura chose to look at Naruto, who was now taller than she was. His hair had grown out, and some of it reached his collarbone. It covered most of his face and eyes, and it went all the way down to his ears. He gave off an aura of power, but she couldn't feel any chakra coming from him. He looked like a very fit shinobi. She had just recently learned that she had new senses, but she still couldn't pick up on anything from Naruto. But she was already sure it was the outfit. Since she knew Naruto had fuinjutsu, she thought that his clothes must have some kind of special seals that kept everyone from sensing anything. At that very moment, Team 7 was eating at the barbecue stand that Team 10 often went to. Even Sasuke and Sai, who usually stay quiet, were there. I've heard you're going on a long-term mission tomorrow. As Kakashi asked her a question, Sakura turned her attention to Naruto, who was scratching the back of his head in a way that only Naruto could. Hey, yeah, it's a retry, I suppose. Kakashi gave a knowing nod, and Sasuke and Sai were eating quietly, probably because they were ready for the party to end. I'll assume you've prepared yourself even better than before. The blonde smiled and nodded as he ate the steak in front of him. You bet. My team's ready for anything tomorrow. The little food in front of Sakura made her ask, "How is your team, Naruto?" "We need more meat." Sakura's mind was furious. He smiled at her and said, "As well as can be expected." He smacked himself on the chest with pride and said, "I am the Taiko. How's things going on your end? I heard you're also going on a lot of missions from the old man." "A lot of missions that don't help," Sasuke replied coldly. The Uchiha told Kakashi, "We're more than ready to go on missions like Naruto. And we still haven't fought each other ever since your lucky victory." He tossed Naruto. The blonde just shrugged again. "We'll get to it eventually." Since it was getting dark, Naruto went to the training grounds that the Hokage had given him. He had the Forest of Death all to himself. For extra safety, he was even digging a hole in the ground in case the Chunin exams came back here. The rest of his team was probably already inside, checking out their new space where they could do whatever they pleased. Except for Touya, though, they already knew a lot about it thanks to the Chunin exams. The Oitsumaru seal, also known as the tracking seal, was worn by everyone on his team, so they could always find each other, even if you didn't have any special fuinjutsu on. After that, he would have to remind himself to show them how to use the silence, suppression, and shroud seals on their own clothes. So he wouldn't have to do it every time by himself. He thought back to when Namikaze-sensei taught him how to make the seals and how long it took him. There was a silence seal for sounds and movement, a suppression seal for chakra presence, and a shroud seal to hide the use of techniques. Those were his three main seals, and they were all placed in certain places. He teleported close to his team with Hiraishin. He could already find the beacons he put down under his workers and figure out how to teleport close to them, but not very close. His subordinates, except for Touya, were rarely surprised when he showed up out of the blue anymore. "Touya, it's too bad you can't join us tomorrow." In fact, Konoha didn't trust Touya, so she wasn't allowed on missions outside of Konoha. He scratched his chin and said, "Genjutsu users are always useful." His eyes were narrowed as he looked at Touya. "It's really too bad." Touya rolled her eyes at her strange captain and said, "Whatever." She has felt strangely at ease ever since she joined this group of outcasts. All of these of her friends talked to each other in a strange way. She also couldn't say she didn't like it. Everyone on the team except Naruto and Gaara was amazed by her genjutsu. They didn't seem to be hurt by anything she threw at them. Gaara was able to do it because he was in sync with his Biju. For Naruto, it was a little different because he and the Kyuubi weren't exactly in the same line, but Naruto could use all of the Kyuubi's chakra whenever he wanted to. So whenever Naruto's outfit told him to use genjutsu, all he had to do was send out a lot of chakra to scare the illusion away. So, Naruto had to get rid of a crapload of chakra with genjutsu. That's why he still needed to learn genjutsu from someone. And Touya liked to deal more than take, so he thought she didn't have much to teach her. "You know, since I've already burned a tracking seal on your body, linked to your very chakra presence, you can't really escape from me." Touya was lying on the ground, healing from a fight she had with Temari. She was now being fought by Gaara, while Dosu and Kankuro were sparring lightly. In the past, Touya had a curse seal, but now that Orochimaru has died, she no longer has it. Touya was still very strong even without that curse seal. At the very least, her summons were interesting, but the way she fought was very weak. I mean it. She was terrible at taijutsu. So, what's it you're saying? Most of the time, Touya was rude and had bad breath. She changed a little after learning she had nothing left over from the failed invasion of Odo. In the end, it didn't matter to her who led Odo. She knew that Konoha was a much better place to live, and she had to agree that the people there were nicer, even though most of them were spoiled brats. Most of all, her captain. "With this as proof, I could get you to come along with us." The redhead woman laughed at him. The woman spoke calmly, not really mad but tired. "Your leader wouldn't let this happen. He doesn't trust me, and no one really trusts me here, so you should just stop the BS. Well, you can't really get away. If you do run for Odo during our mission, I can find you in a second, kill you, or bring you back to Konoha, he said, looking away from Touya and at his friends. What does Odo have that Konoha can't offer you, anyway? Touya told the truth and said, nothing. Odo means shit to me. In fact, everything means shit to me. Naruto was honest and said, I don't trust you, Touya. You helped in the failed attempt to destroy Konoha. Despite it all being orders given to you, I still hold it against you. He spoke loudly. I will kill all that is against Konoha, all that is out to hurt either me or my comrades. Touya replied, you're the perfect example of a Konoha nin. You meet all the criteria. Didn't you know everyone is out to kill everyone, everyone is out to destroy everything? Stupid idiot. Just like you, there's a shinobi out there who's willing to do everything for his or her own country as well. Naruto said in a soft voice, I know. He looked at his friends and said, but I won't attack, I will only fight back. I don't need anything else. My friends are here with me, ready to protect each other from anything. He looked her straight in the eyes and turned back to her. I don't trust you, I don't expect you to become part of what we are, what we've become and what we're still going to be. It was like Touya didn't know what to say anymore, so he just stared back. But I want you to. He said that, and her eyes got bigger. The sincerity in his voice cut deep into her chest. He went on, I want to trust you. I'll make sure you can join us on this mission. If my decision to trust you and want you as my friend, as my comrade, is wrong, he stopped. Then I'll rectify that mistake myself. Naruto and Touya stared at each other for a few more seconds before she finally froze. He broke the quiet. Anyway, pack up what you need for tomorrow because we're going to stay in Kumo for a month. He turned his back on her, so he couldn't see the sudden, small, but real smile on her face. Still, it went as fast as it came. After all, Touya didn't really smile very often. Samui was happy to be able to finally go home as she made her way to the gates of Konoha. It had been a few days since the wreckage had fully recovered, but there was still some paperwork to take care of. One example is how the leaders in Kumo thought this was an act of war by Konoha. What a silly idea. Before the rest of them got there, Karui, Omoi, and Yugito were already at the gates. The wreckage was often late and then whined about it, but everyone inside the group was used to it. After a short time of saying hello and good morning, Samui saw the Konoha team coming up behind them, with a new face. A young woman with red hair. As she looked at the girl, she narrowed her eyes to figure out what kind of kunoichi she was. She also couldn't remember where she had seen her before. As they got close enough to greet her team, Naruto said, this is Touya. She's new to our team. Samui didn't like how Touya didn't do anything to show she wanted to meet someone. So the two of you are also better now, huh? Omoi asked with a lollipop in his right hand. Konoha sends the same team with us to protect us. They must have a lot of faith in you, even though they haven't been able to protect any of us before, Karui said with a small smile. Gaara, Dosu, and Naruto just stared at the girl who was making fun of them. Touya wasn't paying attention, and Temari and Kankuro smiled back. The four pig-tailed Temari replied, one would think two Kumo squads could protect their own cage. Yeah, what I remember seeing is quivering cowards standing in the back. Kankuro said more. Why you? Samui cut Karui off in the middle of an angry question. She looked at Naruto one last time and said, I think it's best we forget about how we dealt with things before. Then she turned back to waiting for the others to arrive. Before facing Naruto, Yugito just smiled at her strange team. So, 2 Jinchuriki, huh? Sending 1 Jinchuriki to Kumo is already quite peculiar, don't you think? Especially with the upcoming Chunin exams. Naruto just gave her a shrug. We mean nothing by it. I'm not even sure we'll still be there during the Chunin exams. But I'm sure your bosses gave you a mission, the two-tailed Jinchuriki said with confidence. Don't think you can act freely within the walls of Kumo. Naruto replied, we're not. And I don't know what you're babbling about. Sure, but I'll be keeping an eye on you, Uzumaki Naruto, she said. Ni Yugito looked at him with cat-like eyes. His voice rose. Really? You'd watch a Junin like yourself. Che, for Jinchuriki, rankings hardly mean anything. A loud explosion came from behind them, and the gates of Konoha found that there was a new hole in the middle of them. One could see a crazy person running off in the distance. "Let's go," was heard far away by everyone. A lazy voice from Darui, who had just joined them along with Shi, said, "Sorry. Kumo will pay to fix anything Raikage-sama may have broken while he was here," he said in a robotic voice, as if he had said it 1,000 times. The old Fire Country leader looked at the Anbu captain in front of him. "Something's off, Hokage-sama." They were talking about Naruto and his progress after Azuki Yugo finished telling them about a mission that had just been completed. His skills in Kenjutsu is far too high for someone never guided before. "He can even get the drop on me and Hayate sometimes," she pointed out. "You say he's just been promoted to Chunin and he was ranked as dead last in his graduating class. If he's the dead last, then the rest of his class will surely ensure that we would win any war in the coming years." The Hokage laughed at her conclusions. "Ah yes, Naruto-kun seemed to have grown a lot in past few months." As Yugo took off her mask, her long purple hair flowed around as she looked the Hokage straight in the eye. "No, he's not dead last, and he's not a Chunin." She pushed some hair out of her face. "I'm sure he's holding back during our spars, too, as he is never even slightly winded. Well, he is a Jinchuriki. And to the Kyuubi no less. He is bound to have huge amounts of energy, or stamina." "No, that's not it, Hokage-sama. He doesn't seem to be breaking a sweat during the spars." She put her arms down. "It's really too bad he rejected the offer to join my squad. He'd really make things easier. I am sure, but I think Anbu might not be a good place for him, anyway." Yugo shrugged and said, "He's already cruel enough. I've heard he's on his way to Kumo." "Yes, the previous time went different than hoped, but this time I'm sure all will be well." Azuki laughed. "Yes, I guess the Anbu squad you've sent out to shadow them will make sure of it. They'll only go so far. The Kumogakure no Jutsu. Looks like we'll finally be getting a tan here, Gaara." The former Suna Jinchuriki didn't frown at his captain, but instead looked back at the village in front of him. Hills with buildings on top of them, hills that were so tall they could reach the clouds. "Kumogakure seems similar to Konoha." "It does," Naruto asked in surprise. He and his friend were walking through the gates of Kumo at the time, and the Raikage was about to crash through them. "How so?" Touya said with her arms folded as she walked next to Temari in front of Kankuro and Dosu. "Looks like a piece of shit village, okay." According to Kankuro, who was looking over his shoulder and not really responding to Touya, "It seems peaceful at first glance. It's what I thought when I stepped through the gates of Konoha for the first time too." As usual, Dosu said just above a whisper, "Appearances are always deceiving." He was skilled enough to bring his voice to the people he wanted to talk to anyway. As Yugito jumped after the Raikage very quickly, she told Naruto's group, "Follow us." It looked like the lightning leader was no longer there. As Naruto's group arrived, hundreds of Fuin Bunshin were already spreading out across the Kumo grounds. Naruto smiled to himself and said, "Infiltration complete." Team Unsen, Naruto, Gaara, Dosu, Temari, Kankuro, and Touya decided to call it a day since they had safe places to live. Gaara stayed with Temari and Kankuro, while Naruto stayed with Touya and Dosu. In case they had to split up, these formations were also the teams. Back in Konoha, they had already agreed not to talk about their mission in Kumo. In the form of Fuinjutsu, the walls might have ears after all. Naruto sat at a table in the small kitchen of their apartment and said, "Their Raikage is really a piece of work, huh?" Touya replied with a smirk, "He'd whoop your ass and you know it." She was lying down on a couch in the living room. Dosu was taking off his bandages while standing in his own bedroom. "How strong are you anyway?" Naruto looked at Touya with a sly grin while resting his chin on the table in the palm of his right hand. "Strong enough. I know you've beaten Kimimaro in his Cursed Seal level 2 state, that alone makes you stronger than the Sound 4 combined. But you defeated him in that state with no scratch on yourself." Touya let out a sigh. "I have to admit that says a lot. We were hard pressed to even land a single glancing blow on that guy, but you killed him easily." He got a hard look from Touya. "We were strong. The Sound 4 were known as elites in Oto. And Kimimaro was our leader. How can you still be a Chunin? Is becoming Junin that hard in Konoha? Touya said loudly. Naruto gave her a shrug as Dosu joined Touya in the living room. You can only become a Junin through hard work, many missions, and many accomplishments. I just don't have enough of all of that yet. It looked like Dosu was just a kid, not a cold-hearted shinobi, so Touya raised an eyebrow at him. He had a buzz cut, so it was clear that his hair was black, and he was wearing normal clothes. She was shocked to see that he didn't have a right arm at all, just a stump with a metal joint on the end. This was true because the metal arm did have a real hand. But what shocked her even more was his face. It was mostly metal. He let out when he saw Touya's eyes on him from the other couch in the living room. Orochimaru's experiments. Machine, flesh and wires. What the hell did he do to your face? You look like a robot. Naruto already knew his story, so he wasn't paying much attention to the two of them. Besides, he was getting messages from his Fuin Bunshin all the time. Behind some machinery, Dosu's right eye was still whole. It could sense body heat and work as binoculars. Even stranger was the fact that his mouth felt like metal. Dosu smiled, and Touya had to agree that it looked pretty creepy. My mouth, or to be precise, my vocal cords have been reinforced to allow certain Oden jutsu. While the experiments had finished, I never had the time to try anything out before we were suddenly ordered to become a genin team for the Chunin exams in Konoha. Naruto suddenly spoke up as he looked at the two people talking in the living room. We might be going on a mission with Yugito's team in a few days. Tomorrow we have a training session with them. No one asked him how he knew this all of a sudden. They all knew it was because of his Fuin Bunshin. He turned away from them again and said, "It's funny, but I want to see how I do against that ni Yugito." They were given a mission to test how strong we all really are. But I think I'll let them fight Dosu and Touya by themselves. Dosu has gotten stronger, and Touya is also not to be underestimated. They were able to kill all three Chunin with all their might, but I wonder if they can also get Yugito. Pretty much everything about Kumo was now clear to him. His Fuin Bunshin couldn't do anything like open books or scrolls to find information, but people talk. A lot of people talk. These people are most likely to act alone. As it was, the Hokage thought that the Raikage was putting together a big, strong army. Now Naruto could prove those thoughts. Besides that, he now knew where the eight-tailed Jinchuriki was. He was very interested in this future ally. Because his future self had never told him anything about ni Yugito, he thought that Yugito had died in the future. While Dosu stood in front of Karui, Omoi, and Samui, Naruto read a scroll of nonsense to make it look like he was busy with something else. Gaara was watching what was going on instead of him, and Touya was standing behind Dosu with her arms crossed. There was a fight going on between Temari and Kankuro about breakfast. Naruto was glad he didn't stay with them this morning. Gaara beat all three of you in less than 5 minutes, right? Dosu asked the three of them, flanked by ni Yugito, their leader. If that's really the case, I wonder if I can skip fighting the weaklings and go straight for the leader. Karui looked angry right away. Karui screamed at Dosu, "You mummy jerk. I'm gonna cut those bandages all off." As he grabbed her sword. Even though Omoi didn't say anything, he did the same things. Samui looked at Dosu with his eyes narrowed. He talks like he knows how strong we are already. He hasn't told us anything about himself, though. He acts like he's stronger than Gaara, but it's clear that's just a bluff. Very well. Samui, who was as calm as always, looked at her temporary leader out of the corner of her eye. But her two teammates were anything but calm. They both let out a, "What? Ni Taiko, you can't be serious. This kid, a genin, thinks he can best 3 Chunin. Let us beat him up." Karui told him. "You do remember what happened before, right?" asked the Kumo Jinchuriki. The animal just shrugged. The young woman said, "As a Junin, I don't usually face easy opponents, so let me have some fun here. Never think less of your opponents. In this case, a Kumo Junin, she should be too much for me," Dosu thought as she watched the Junin move. She smiled and showed off her fangs as her subordinates stepped aside. "Hey, are you sure you want to face me alone?" Dosu said. "No, you are a Junin after all. I will have one teammate accompany me against you. Yugito frowned as Touya walked in sync with Dosu. She didn't seem motivated at all. Just one. I'd think you want your entire team to back you up, though. Touya disappeared from view as Dosu got ready. That won't be necessary. They've begun, Yaguchi said, and he also took a battle stance. Fine then, show me what you've got. Ni Taiko, behind you. Yugito growled and had her kunai ready to stab whoever was behind her or block any attack that came her way. But when she turned around, she saw no one or nothing. Got you. Don't think Yugito saw Dosu's metal arm coming. She jumped away and landed a few feet in front of her team. Her team looked completely confused as she told them to stay out of this. The Neko Jinchuriki was shocked to see that her vision was getting worse by the second. You hit me with something, didn't you? A voice from behind said. I did. That hit you pretty hard, he said in front of her. You won't be able to stand straight, and you shouldn't have thought I was so weak, came from both sides at the same time. Even though her vision was blurry, she saw Dosu coming toward her. She immediately sent out a lot of chakra to protect herself from any attacks and get away from him for a moment. They were fighting in a clearing, but Yugito was hidden in a bush nearby. She was shaking her head to clear her vision. He thought, sound, he uses sound. He's really talented. The Kumo Junin was mad that she fell for it so easily. Nekomata, would you please wake me up? Even though she didn't hear back, the shock in her body let her know everything was fine again. She softly whispered, let's try this again. Dosu then fell toward her in the next second. Yugito was able to avoid getting hit by Shin's next move and run back to the clearing. He was careful not to get hit by Shin's metal arm. Dosu walked back into the clearing, and Yugito looked very serious. Advanced hearing and control over sound. Not bad, Genin, let's kick this up a notch then. Dosu's eyes got big when he couldn't see Yugito anymore, but he was able to avoid the simple kick from behind because he could hear it coming. You won't catch me off guard so easily. He talked too soon, because Yugito just kept up with her attack and punched Dosu in the face. I'm faster than you, kid. Even though the punch didn't throw him off, it hurt. He took off the bandages in front of his mouth, spat out some blood, and then showed Yugito his metal mouth. The woman looked his opponent straight in the eyes. Ni Taiko, watch out. When Yugito heard Karui's voice from behind her, she jumped away right away. Watch out, Ni Taiko. He's coming. This time it was Omoi's voice, coming from behind. Because he wasn't sure what was going on, Yugito jumped away again as Dosu attacked from the sky. She was faster, though. While keeping an eye on both her team and the other team, she noticed that her team didn't look as scared as they did during the previous warnings. You can imitate their voices. Dosu said, it's too bad you're so fast. But yes, once heard enough, one of my abilities is to be able to copy another person's voice. Capable of confusing the enemy. Unfortunately, I haven't had the pleasure of hearing your other subordinate's voice enough. Yugito smiled and said, I see. That's a dangerous ability, but you do realize I won't fall for it again now, right? Dosu let out a short laugh. I should hope so, since I do have more tricks up my sleeve. When Dosu did hand seals, his left hand was stuck in a seal and his right hand was touching his collarbone. But let's see if you won't fall for it again. Aden, Kensu no Jutsu. There it was. While Yugito was still in the clearing, she heard hundreds of voices yelling at her and at each other. She could hear Omoi's voice, Karui's voice, Dosu's team, and a lot of other voices she didn't know. Like this, she couldn't focus at all, so she turned on her chakra cloak right away, sure that Dosu was already moving. If I were someone else, this would have been a killer move. That kid's good. The noise didn't go away at all while the chakra cloak was around her. For now, I'm safe from taijutsu. What else can he do? Dosu agreed. You're lucky to be a Jinchuriki. This is how I feel every time I fight Naruto Taiko or Gaara Fukataichu. It was true. All of his sounds were connected to his chakra. In this case, that was the real attack, to throw off his opponent. That it would be a bother came after that. The technique either threw off the opponent completely or gave him a perfect chance to attack. When fighting a Jinchuriki, neither of those things happened. I guess I'll try something else then, Dosu said. He squatted down and did a single seal. It was Oden, Shigo no Jutsu. He then did another set of hand seals. Kuchio's no Jutsu. Dosu called up a polearm with one big blade at the end and 4 small blades on the sides. Yugito watched through her chakra cloak. You can't approach me when I'm like this, Dosu said in a low voice, but I don't feel the need to do that. Sweden, Yonbushi. Dosu pushed his polearm forward, which made Yugito's eyes widen. But it looked like the polearm shot out water techniques, and when she looked more closely, she saw a seal tag on it. A cutting water technique made stronger by some seal. Even though Yugito had the chakra cloak on, he chose to avoid Dosu's 4 water images of his polearm. She dodged the attacks and watched as they cut trees in half. That polearm seems to have water chakra packed into it. My turn for some tricks, Kuchio's no Jutsu. As something seemed to appear out of the ground all around Yugito, Dosu got ready. When Dosu looked more closely, he saw 4 small creatures that looked like small ogres burrowing into the ground. These are my zombie ogres. They eat people, Yugito said with a grin as the 4 ogres jumped quickly at Dosu. As he jumped backwards, Dosu swung his polearm to protect him and call out, Sweden, Sujinheki. The loud sounds around her slowly went away, and Yugito noticed that it was quiet again. It looked like her ogres were getting tired and just lying down on the ground. He played his sound on them. Yugito. She looked at Dosu with suspicion when she heard a loud whisper and took her eyes off of her dead ogres. The clearing filled with the sound of a flute all of a sudden. What are you doing, Yugito? You killed him, she heard again. When she opened her eyes, she saw Dosu on the ground being eaten by her ogres. What? You killed my subordinate, Naruto said as he walked forward. A huge amount of red chakra swirled around him. Naruto rushed forward and said, an eye for an eye. But then he disappeared. She said to Touya as she looked at her from a nearby tree, genjutsu of this level. You're pretty good, too. Since she was a genjutsu master, it was easy for her to break the illusion. The woman said, but genjutsu won't work on me. She was surprised to still hear whispers telling her to watch her back and look out. While this was going on, Naruto looked at Yugito with narrowed eyes. Perhaps she can show me how to use genjutsu. She got out of Touya's mind games without using much chakra. Going back to the fight, Touya jumped down and did a few hand seals. Kuchio's no jutsu. Yugito found it funny when 3 huge ogres showed up in front of Touya. There were still a lot of whispers around Yugito, trying to get her attention, but she was sure that it was Dosu's last technique, the Shigo no Jutsu, doing it. Today is summoning technique day, huh? Let's see how those summons of yours deal with. With a chakra claw, she cut through one of Touya's summons like it was nothing. Touya was a little shocked, but she kept playing her flute and told the other 2 ogres to attack Yugito as it moved back and forth. Dosu joined the fight and hit Yugito with a number of water techniques, but the Jinchuriki was moving too quickly. Enough of this crap, Touya growled at Yugito, who was moving quickly. Tai. After letting go of her summons, Touya did another set of hand seals. Let's see you try to beat this, old hag. Kuchio's no jutsu. Yugito half joked, another summon. She looked out of the corner of her eye and saw that Dosu had already used up most of his chakra. And only one this time. Indeed, there was one less ogre in front of Touya than the 3 she had called before. Hey, this one'll be your downfall. My previous ogres have the same ability as this one, but this one is just so much more effective. As many things came out of the ogre's body, Yugito's eyes got narrow. Slithering, clear, and white. Snakes. The material ghosts then split up, with 6 of them leaving the large creature. Yugito smiled and said, this ogre is special, Kumo Junin. You'd better dodge. Shit, I don't know anything about her, Yugito said as he threw some kunai at the moving ghosts. The kunai looked like they didn't even hit the things. They don't have mass. Those shapes are just chakra. Then they came, all 7 of them. 6 white ghosts and 1 very fast moving ogre. She was a Junin, though, and a pretty good one. It was easy for her to avoid all 7 things, even Dosu, who tried to hit her with his polearm. Through all the dodging, She even kicked him away. Then she saw that one half of her chakra cloak was missing. Two of those white snakes had touched her. Yugito strengthened her chakra cloak again to put some space between herself and her enemies. I can't believe I have to use my chakra cloak on these two genin, but I have to. She looked at Touya and saw that she was playing the flute. The flute guides all of these beings. And those things drain chakra. Quote. Yugito threw some shuriken at Touya and saw that she had perfect control over her beings because the last ogre caught all of them easily. I'll just have to get close to her to end the technique. Don't forget about me, I'm right here, and, you're letting your guard down, were all whispers that were still close to her thanks to Dosu's art. Yugito thought about Dosu, who had just gotten up after being kicked. You're wasting chakra, your whispers don't affect me. And you're a fool, Dosu said with a steely grin. Those whispers aren't meant to distract you, they're transferring chakra from you to me, the fact you hear them is the fact your chakra is being used. When Yugito saw that he was right, her eyes got really big. She had already lost a lot of chakra because she was holding up her chakra cloak the whole time. Then how come you still look so tired? He sighed because he knew he was almost out of the game. It's simple. The whispers are draining your chakra, but they can't give it to me because you're using a special kind of chakra. A Biju's chakra is harmful to a non-Jinchuriki, or didn't you know? But maybe Touya can still beat you. Yugito shook her head and folded her arms. She felt like she had been taught something. What skills and teamwork, Yugito said with a mean grin. You guys, make me want to go at you seriously. Yugito was running fast toward Touya, dodging ghosts and the fast ogre. He appeared behind the girl with red hair and hit her in the back of the head with a kunai. Game over. Not yet. Touya turned into a copy of the ogre she had called forth. It almost cut Yugito in the stomach, but the woman quickly jumped away. She smelled Touya and said, Man, you guys are good. I assume you had beyond perfect control over that one ogre, huh? Yugito had already found Touya and saw that 2 ogres and 6 material ghosts were quickly moving toward her. Yugito rose above the trees and opened her chakra cloak even more to see Touya playing her flute. Now the game's over. Touya growled as she put down the flute. Yeah, you're lucky you're a Jinchuriki. When Naruto saw how the battle had turned out, he smiled. They were able to push a Jinchuriki to her limits even though his 2 subordinates lost. I think those 2 could work well together. Hey, yo, Naruto stood up and looked around. He was sitting on a small balcony in front of his temporary apartment in Kumo at the time. The people he was in charge of were probably inside or walking around the village while being watched by several Anbu. The blonde didn't like the way the man standing on his roof and looking down at him looked at him. Hey, yo, yes, what's with the cloaking? Don't you know guys like us should be smoking? Smoking? Naruto asked in a deadpan voice. What are you babbling about, old man? He said, nothing new, just a question for you. He adjusted his sunglasses. He put down the scroll he was working on to give the man his full attention. Your rhyming sucks. Don't hate, commemorate. What do you want, poser? I'm here to investigate. A bird told me you were bigger than 8. Naruto hid behind the man and asked, again, what do you want? Whoa, you're not too bad. But thing is, I ain't the mad. Says the guy with 8 swords, ready for instigation or retaliation. Naruto looked at him. You have a lot of chakra. You were sent to me by the Raikage. The man put out his hand in the shape of a fist and said, my brother ain't my mother. He can send, but I won't mend. Name's Killer B, most shit here is free when you're with me. Naruto looked at the hand with doubt and then let out a sigh. He smiled and said, I guess even Kumo has its own weirdos. He smacked Kurabi on the shoulder. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto, you little guy, I'll show you why it's bad to be shy in this village nearby. Nearby? We're already in the village, right? Man, you're really bad at that. Naruto stopped touching the palm of his right hand so that Igo Kaiki wouldn't appear. I don't understand why my Fuin Bunshin hasn't seen this guy yet. I have the same amount of chakra as this guy, so it's likely that he is the 8-tailed Jinchuriki. But sure, show me around town then. The Raikage was in his office, and there were 2 Jinchuriki from Kumo sitting in front of his desk. So, what did you find out? Yugito laughed in a shy way and looked at her lap. Actually, I fought his subordinates, I was too tired to fight him after that. I narrowed his eyes at Yugito right away. 2 genin made you tired. They're not normal. The entire team isn't normal. One of the genin defeated my entire team single-handedly. 2 of the genin together made me fight seriously. I think the leader is Junin material, even if he is a Chunin. He's a Jinchuriki, after all. B, what do you think? Killer B gave a wise nod and said, 8 says to wait for more information to arrive at the gate. He says he's not there, only there if you stare. He can't be read, but knows where to tread. A rolled his eyes at B's usual strange behavior. So he knows we're going to try to figure him out, right? He asked Yugito, so I assume you know a lot about his subordinates. Yeah, the spar from today gave me the missing information about the 2 Oto missing nin. They're really, really good. If I wasn't a Jinchuriki, I might have lost. Despite you being a Junin. He thought about the question for a while. Quote comma dot dot, maybe. I see, that old man, he's too straightforward. He wants a war, sending out such powerful shinobi here. I don't think they mean any harm. The kid's intentions didn't seem to raise any red flags. B continued to rap. Shut up, B. You do know you're acting too cool, right? You're too laid back. Naruto chose to go into town to get some new socks and short dark trunks that he could put new seals on. Samui was waiting behind him as he was about to walk into a store. The girl was dressed in the same way he was used to seeing her. Her blonde hair was short and fell just below her shoulder. It almost covered her blue eyes. People often say I'm high-strung, though. I'm sure, Samui said, but his face looked like it was stuck in neutral. I'm serious, the blonde man said. It's too suspicious. It's as if you're planning something. Something big. Naruto smiled at the girl in front of him who looked a little older. Like a prank. Samui gave him a frown. Quote comma dot. No, not like a prank. But what if I was? You're changing the subject. Before he left, Naruto smiled at her and said, man, you're the most serious person I've met. Got a jet? Samui looked at his back as he walked away. I'm the most serious, she asked. She shook her head and began to walk slowly. No, I'm cool. Yugito was on her way to Kumo after delivering something to the lightning daimyo and getting it there safely when a crazy person swung a 3-part scythe at her and her team. Omoi frowned at the strange person coming toward him and asked, Oi, Taiko, what do we do here? They were only 3 to 5 miles away from Kumo. He was never good at guessing how far something was. If he wants to fight, who are we to stop him? Asked Karui, the redhead, as she pulled out her sword. He seems serious, with all that killer intent he's giving off, Yugito said with a sigh of irritation. But be careful, he seems strong. As usual for their team, Karui and Omoi launched the first attack, but this time their opponent was already coming at them quickly. Instead of being skilled with swords like Karui and Omoi, their opponent swung his scythe around like he was bats crazy. It was attached to a chain on his hand. But it wasn't easy to nick the 2 Kumo nin, and they were able to move around his attacks with ease. Omoi jumped backwards and asked, who the hell are you, anyway? He knew he couldn't get close if his opponent was attacking like that. They needed attacks that could reach far away. You pussies need to be sacrificed. Karui frowned at the awkward answer and jumped back as well. Okay, this guy is crazy. How about some ninju? She was caught off guard when Yugito called out a jutsu. Doden, Ishi no Jutsu. Karui and Omoi jumped out of the way quickly as they saw dozens of sharp rocks hit their enemy in the body. Impacts that kill. Hey you, fucking cat. That hurts. Yugito rolled her eyes at what he said and at his wounds. I hit him several times in important places, but he's not going down. He also said, cat, right. Suddenly, she felt like someone was coming up behind them. Who? Hidan. You can't handle this alone. Shut the hell up, Kakuzu. Yugito was scared because, even though she was a sensor ninja, she hadn't felt this other guy before. He was getting very angry that he couldn't train all the way because it would show too much to the people who were clearly watching him. He made so many new forms of Fudan Jutsu that they couldn't be tested. His Yukin techniques would get the whole country's attention, and his Madden techniques would make even more people wonder. It was hard for him to even practice his Kenjutsu Kata. He was having fun doing nothing in Kumo at the moment. Temari and Kankuro were working on their skills, and Gaara was in a situation that was a lot like one he was in. He was really interested in Oto because Dosu and Touya looked like they were having a great time in the village. For some people, Kumo may be the same, but for him, it was very different. No one here looked down on him or gave him dirty looks. In fact, he loved strolling around town and going into stores without being asked to leave. Like in Konoha, he looked at and checked out young women without realizing that he had no chance of winning. That weirdo was following him around, which is a shame. How did he feel about being his friend? Look, B, I'm trying to relax here. Your rapping grates on my nerves. Naruto, are you crazy? These legendary rhymes be amazing. He was going to yell out again, doesn't even rhyme, old man. But something stopped him. Someone called a Fuin Bunshin who was following Yugito's team outside of the village was thrown away. It looks like the barrier around Kumogakure can only tell when Chakra are entering the village. The warning his Fuin Bunshin gave him was scary, though. Tenkaichi. Without wasting any time, Naruto quickly sealed his hands to perform Kenpu, Baosaikan, Keiho no Jutsu. It caught Kurabi off guard when he saw the blonde next to him do some hand seals. What made things even stranger was that nothing happened. B, I have to go. As Naruto left, Killer B didn't have time to answer. He took a yellow flash. This shocked Kurabi. Now that's something fresh. He looked like he was thinking a lot by putting his hand to his chin. Now should I go report this to bro, or after that flash I go? Gaara turned his head to look in the direction of the chakra pulse, but he was sure he was the only one who could feel it. Naruto used that move to let the rest of the team know that something was wrong. His alarm method. He quickly did a few seals because he knew that his blonde captain wouldn't be where he felt the chakra alarm. He said, Kenpu, Baosaikan, Oitsumaru no Jutsu, in his mind and focused on where Naruto had gone. That's pretty far, he thought as he quickly left the room. He hoped everyone else did the same. I need to get going. Naruto's alarm technique was also seen by Temari and Kankuro, who were training. It sends a chakra pulse through their body and tells the receiver where the pulse came from. Kankuro yelled, something is definitely wrong. I can feel Gaara leaving already. Let's go. Temari yelled back, are you stupid? Naruto and Gaara can leave the village easily with their jutsu, but for us it's different, we won't be able to just leave Kumo like that. As Dosu and Touya walked into the clearing, Dosu said, rest assured. I'll be able to help out on that front. Dosu was also nervous because Naruto had never used the alarm jutsu, also known as the Keiho technique. I'll distract the guards with my Oden jutsu, even Junin will fall for it. It'll give us enough time to sneak out. Touya asked, or I could do some genjutsu. Shitheads won't see us coming and won't see us leaving.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.